VIRginia International Raceway has been a fixture in this part of the world for well over half a century. But we very nearly lost it for pretty much half of that time when it closed in 1974. The future of this 17-corner, 3¼ mile epic race circuit was very much under threat and in doubt. Thanks to Connie Nyholm and the ownership group who took over in the early 2000s, the circuit has been restored to even better than its original glory. And the IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship this weekend will play out for the Michelin GT Challenge here on this challenging circuit in the VIRginia countryside. Hello everybody, I'm John Hindhaugh and we're live with Michelin GT Challenge coverage from VIR on IMSA Radio and IMSA TV. Lovely to have your company, whether you're joining us here around the track on 89.9 FM, and thanks to Dave Miller and all of the technical staff here for getting us onto the PA and the track radio all around the world via IMSA TV and IMSA Radio. And a chance to say thank you to all our hard-working technical staff here at the track, up at Charlotte and back in our London main control room, who've had a very, very busy weekend. The Radio Show Limited network making sure that sports car fans right around the world are right up to date with what is going on in this 2-hour and 40-minute challenge. It's Ford and Porsche on the front row, with Richard Westbrook starting the 67 car. Patrick Pilet in the number 911 Porsche, appropriately enough, will start on the outside of the front row. Behind them, BMW, and a great qualifying from John Edwards in the number 24. That's the black BMW from Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing this weekend. A brand new car for 2018, the M8 GT Le Mans. He's got Antonio Garcia alongside him in the bright yellow Corvette number 3. Antonio Garcia, along with Jan Magnussen, are the twice defending champions of this race, looking to make it 3 in a row here at VIR. Further back, our second class is the GT Daytona cars, and that's led by Lexus. And Yorkshireman Jack Hawksworth in the number 15 car has the Dutchman Jeroen Bleekemolen alongside him in the Mercedes number 33. Behind them, Bill Oberlin, the highly experienced BMW driver, is in the blue and orange number 96 Turner Motorsport BMW, returning to the championship after missing around, having had an argument with gravity for just before our last race a couple of weeks ago. And the second Lexus of Kyle Marcelli, the number 14, is on the outside of the front row, second row, excuse me, Jeremy.
Yeah, a couple of potential milestones this weekend. One of them for Bill Oberlin, looking for his 60th win in the top-level sports car competition in North America. That would equal the tally of Scott Pruitt. Also, of course, we've seen this for 4 or 5 races now, the Chevy Corvette looking for its 100th win on US soil. Oh yes, very good point that, Jeremy. The 100th win for Corvette Racing came at Lime Rock Park a couple of seasons ago now, and they are up to 107 victories, and so they are going for their 100th here on US soil. A full century of victories, quite a remarkable record for that august squad. Right, Jeremy, are you ready for this? Absolutely. Just for the onboard here, beautiful weather conditions at the moment. It's hot, it's sticky, it's humid out there. There is a threat of some rain later on, but for right now it's dry, and that's what the teams are planning for. Got a very special Grand Marshal to wave the green flag. Over 100 years old and looks better now than he ever has done. You know who it is? I do. He's put on a little bit of weight over the years, perhaps. Do you think so? I think he might have lost a bit since those early years. Maybe so. Trimmed down a little bit. It is Babendum, the Michelin man, will be waving the green flag, appropriately enough, for the Michelin GT Challenge. And this circuit is an integral part of Michelin's test and development program for street and for race tyres. And they've been giving some very lucky race fans
the opportunity to sample the new Michelin Pilot Sport tyres on the infield Patriot circuit here this weekend.
And the first ever all GT race that IMSA ever held was right here at VIR in 1971, so yet more history here. This is going to be a cracker.
And that was won by a mid-engined Porsche,
Yes.
Hurley Haywood and Peter Gregg with a 9146. And we've got a mid-engined Porsche on the front row here with Patrick Pilet looking to make history repeat. 70 years of Porsche, and it's Porsche, BMW and Corvette right on the front. Bib does the job very well indeed. Great effort in waving that green flag, and straight away the BMW comes round the outside. John Edwards muscling that black Beamer through into second place. Can Pilet hold him off on the inside of turn 1? He's on the wrong side for turn 2, and he will go through. Both BMWs have gone through. Pilet's dropped down to 4th, may go down to 5th. Both of the Corvettes ganging up on him now. So both BMWs have demoted the 911 Porsche, which started on the front row. Very wide entry into the first chicane by the number 4 Chevy Corvette of Tom Milner, who'd made a blistering start from 7th on the grid. That was showing real intent, Jeremy, and our Porsche keys to the race earlier on was track position, and if you're going to make passes, make them decisive, and we saw that right at the drop of the grade.
Brilliant start by John Edwards. He was absolutely glued to the tail of the pole sitter Richard Westbrook away from the side. He thought about challenging around the outside, wasn't able to pull it off, but he's up into second place, and Conor Di Filippi following him through. Great start by the BMWs. Tommy Milner, he's gone to the back of the pack here now in GTLM, but it's Tommy from Virginia who has set the fastest lap of the weekend in GTLM. It came not in qualifying because of the rain, but in practice 3 yesterday morning.
Richard Westbrook has cleared out. Oh, there's a touch between the Corvette number 3 and it's going off. Number 4, excuse me. That is Tom Milner. Just clipped the back of the Porsche going in, and it's punctured the tyre, I think, on the Porsche. Yeah, the wheel's gone down. The right rear wheel has gone down. Right wheel tyre has gone down on the Porsche number 912 of Earl Bamber, who'd fought his way through. And an awful start to what's not been a great weekend for the New Zealander.
Yeah, he was an innocent victim there, I think. Tommy was pressuring the issue on there on the outside line, going into the left-handed kink. And I think it was Tommy that made contact with the rear of the Porsche.
Both cars going off the track, heading in towards the top of the hill at what round here is called the roller coaster. We have our first pit caller. Shea Adam is watching the 912 and Earl Bamber.
A lot earlier than I was hoping for, John, as the right rear tire is hanging limply, but there appears to be no suspension damage, at least from the initial look. That's the good news. I'll know as soon as the tire gunner removes the tire. Yep, they're taking a quick look, throwing a new Michelin on. They're just going to give Earl 4 new tires and then send him back out on the racetrack. Just working on the right front now. Earl's sitting patiently in the car. Pull the air gun out. Engine refires. Never a cent.
Leaders at the Oak Tree turn, so Bamber hasn't lost a lap, but he's lost an awful lot of ground on the cars. The incident is under review from race control, as you might imagine. Tom Milner, by the way, dropped down to 14th position. There was a degree of weaving around from both drivers there, and the problem there for race control to decipher and unravel was the 912 Porsche blocking and weaving around too much.
Yep, it was committed there to the left-hand side of the racetrack, certainly, wasn't it? And it's a left-hand kink that leads into the tighter right-hander. And Tommy Milner there was that was a scary ride for the both of them. For Milner, yeah, the Chevy Corvette's a little bit quicker on the straights than some of the other cars here, and particularly the Porsches actually.
912 incident responsibility drive through.
Wow.
Do you know what though, Jeremy? I can see why that's called, because he's driving down one side of the track and he moves across into another lane.
Right. Yeah.
I know it's the early part of that. Now, if I'm Earl Bamber, you stay out for as many of the 3 laps as you dare and try and get some of that ground back whilst you're in clear air. We've got the 93 in as well, Shea Adam, the Acura of Justin Marks.
It's been a great story this year for the 86, the sister car, but not the year that the 93, the full season entrant for MSR Acura, was hoping for. They've brought the car in. Justin Marks started. It was Lawson Aschenbach who qualified, and they have pulled the engine cover off. They know what they're looking for. They're putting the engine cover back on. car has refired. They're going to send him back out and have a little discussion on the pit box. The 93 pit box is the one that Michael Shank sits on, so he'll be looking at all the data and talking to the engineers. But this was a car that started from the dead back of the field, so at least Earl Bamber, who's coming across the start-finish line now, will have a little bit of company on track. Unfortunately, it's in the shape of a GTD car.
Yeah, does he get past him? That's the question. Yes, he does. Passes him going into turn 1, so that's good news for Earl Bamber. The reason that the Justin Marks car went to the back was because Lawson Aschenbach qualified that car and therefore should have started. They weren't overly happy with how the car was going in qualifying or the morning warm-up, to be honest, and so they thought they would just take that penalty, swap drivers, but it clearly hasn't paid off. Even now, whatever was ailing that car may have reared its ugly head again, I'm afraid. It's IMSA Radio, live from trackside, and what an opening couple of salvos as Corvette and Porsche battle away down towards turn number 1. This time it's Antonio Garcia against Patrick Pilar, who had a nightmare of a start, with Jonathan Edwards and Connor De Filippi getting through. Started in second place and had a decent run to the line with Richard Westbrook from pole position in the 67 Ford, but then got mugged by the two BMWs and almost had to give best as well to the Corvettes. He's held on now to 4th position, but what a start by the two GT Le Mans BMWs. In GTD, Jerome Blakemolen has overhauled Jack Hawksworth, so the pole sitter now down to 2nd. Bill Oberlin holds on to 3rd for BMW, 33, 15 and 96, with Pat Long in 4th position in the red and white Wright Motorsport Porsche number 58. Earl Bamber has not yet come into the pit lane, so he's doing as I suggested and trying to get a couple of good laps in with brand new Michelins to try and get to do his drive-through without dropping a lap, but I think that's a tall order.
Yeah, I think he probably... Yeah,
he's in now.
Okay, fine, yeah. But for the last 2 laps, by the way, the BMW has been the fastest car on the racetrack.
Yeah.
Lap 2, it was number 24 car of John Edwards, set the fastest lap of the race.
Change of position, Jeremy, and it is Antonio Garcia demoting Patrick Pilar, front row starter, now down into 5th position. And Shea Adam was watching the 912 Porsche come in to serve its drive-through. Shea?
He's come out about 10 seconds ahead of Richard Westbrook on the racetrack, so he needs a caution now, desperately.
Well, or they need to pull some tricky strategy. 1:43.3 from Richard Westbrook. Very fast lap from the front of the field by Richard Westbrook in the Ford GT. And he has pulled out a full second on the field now, and he's picking his way through turn 3 and up through the chicane before the uphill S's. Jeremy Shaw, great start from Jerome Blakemolen as well. Just got ahead of Jack Hawksworth in the opening exchanges in GT Daytona.
He did, but the guy on the move was the car number 58 of Patrick Long. He started in the 14th position, so 6th in GT Daytona. He's now up to 4th and on the tail of the top 3 as well. So Patrick Long has really got the hammer down in the early stages. In the meantime, Tommy Milne is having a hard time fighting his way through that lot, actually. Carl Marcelli's dropped a couple of positions, well, a position, down to 5th. He was the latest victim of Patrick Long, but nothing to choose between the leaders up front, but that was a good lap by Richard Westbrook, and he's going faster again on this lap as well.
Need to see Earl Bamber's next lap as well to see how quickly he can get across the line and see if he can close down, and he is in isolation at the moment, so he's got clear track ahead of him, which is good because the Porsche is not the fastest car in the straight line, but it is pretty good round the corners, so he will, I think, be able to make up some ground on the field, but he can't certainly match the pace of the straight line pace of the Corvettes and Richard Westbrook in the Ford, possibly not the BMWs either. 1:43.198 on the 5th lap is the quickest for Antonio Garcia in the Chevrolet Corvette. They have made a habit this season, the two Chevy Corvettes, of finding pace in the race and grinding out results as well. That particular team riding high in the championship at the moment, coming into the VIR event in 2nd position, only 4 points away from Richard Westbrook and Ryan Briscoe. Ford lead Chevy, excuse me, by 265 points to 251, so 14 points between the two manufacturers as we head into the business end of the season. Ford, BMW, Chevy Corvette, Porsche and Ford, the top 6, all GT Le Mans cars. Then the GTD battle with Bleekemolen almost a second ahead now of the pole-sitting Lexus of Jack Hawksworth, the number 15 car. Then Bleekemolen in the blue and yellow BMW from Turner Motorsport, the 96 car. He's pressuring Hawksworth, the man from Yorkshire at the moment. And in 4th position, Pat Long, as Jeremy said, the man on the move. He's another about a second and a half further back, with Tom Milner working his way through, having been already off the track in that opening lap incident with Earl Bamber that earned Earl Bamber a drive-through penalty.
Yeah, for moving across on Tom and Milner going into the braking area at the top of the hill. Richard Westbrook, that car is particularly fast through the first sector here. Turns 1, 2, 3, 4. Tightish corners, decreasing radius turns. It's very, very fleet through those corners, and then the rest of the track, well, there's nothing to choose between any of them, it would seem. Is on board with Antonio Garcia, looking to the outside of the Porsche 911 into the braking area for turn 1. He draws kind of a level with the rear flank of the Porsche, but not close enough to make a pass. He tries to do the over-under and gets a run on the Porsche towards turn 3, but again he's on the wrong side then of the racetrack, so has to tuck in behind once again. So good battling going on here, and all of the GTLM cars up front running lap times within a tenth of a second or two. They're very, very closely matched. That was the best lap for the race leader last time around, the 43.2, 1 minute 43.2. The lap record, by the way, here set last year by Giancarlo Fisichella in the sadly absent Ferrari Risi Competizione as a 141.2, so it's relatively conservative in the early stages of this race.
In GT Daytona, Madison Snow, the championship leader, number 48, in 7th position at the moment with a handy 18-point lead over Catherine Legg, who... did Brian Sellers start that car, not Madison Snow? My apologies, I actually read what was on the timing screen. I'll check with that with Shea. The 86 car is 1 place ahead with Mario Farnbacher paired with Catherine Legg this weekend, and it's Catherine that's in 2nd in the championship with Ben Keating and Jerome Bleekemolen another 12 points further back in that 33 car, which is leading at the moment by 3/4 of a second. Great race at the front of the field. Richard Westbrook, it is Madison Snow, he qualified the car of course, so he had to start the race. 1.2 seconds, Richard Westbrook now from John Edwards in 2nd place for BMW, 2nd ahead of his teammate Conor De Filippi. But the battle is on now because Antonio Garcia is seemingly tied with a very short bungee cord onto the back of that mainly white BMW. And charging up behind them is Patrick Pilet. 3-car battle about to develop for 3rd place overall and in GT Le Mans. Meantime, in GT Daytona, the white and green 33 going through the chicane 5 and 6 before heading up the hill under the crossover bridge and past our commentary point here. The rumbling Mercedes of Jerome Bleekemolen AMG GT3, I should probably call that. The Riding Technologies entered car. And Jerome Bleekemolen doing great work there. That is a magnificent beast up the hill. And Bleekemolen, one of the best exponents of GT3 anywhere in the world. Yeah, and I think that Mercedes seems to be particularly suited to the track here at VIR. It looks great. It was the same in GT4 spec. The drivers there in yesterday's Intercontinental Tire SportsCar Challenge were thrilled with the way their cars were handling around here. Of course, they ended up winning that race in GT4, did Mercedes, with Team TGM. And perhaps they can pull off another win here for Jerome Bleekemolen and Ben Keating. Westbrook is just reeling off fastest lap after fastest lap after fastest lap, and now the best comes down to 142.8. Earl Bamber has done a 142.8 as well that lap, so that answers the question. That 912 Porsche right at the back now, and he's about to catch up with the back of the GT Daytona field. but he is absolutely flying at the moment. 42.865 is the fastest lap of the race last time around. And last time around for Earl Bamber, 42.899.
And 42.894 also for Conor De Filippi in the BMW. So there's three different manufacturers there, all turning laps within, you know, milliseconds of each other. It is super tight. But John Edwards there slipping back a little bit now. He's a second and a half behind Westy. Richard Westbrook last time around, as you said, a new fastest lap of the race. It was just a hundredth quicker than the previous lap. But that's not the point. The point is that he is going quicker and quicker.
We've seen this year, Jeremy, haven't we, that the Michelin short cars, as the fuel burns off, whether it's in qualifying or the race, just seem to get faster and faster. The GT Le Mans cars take maybe a couple or three laps for the tyres to come up to, laps longer for the tyres to come up to operating temperatures and pressures. But my goodness, both of our tyre manufacturers in this championship actually take about, because their tyres are durable and fast right through to the end of their stints. Pat Long, by the way, is closing down on Bill Oberlin. It was a better part of 2 seconds, and now it's just over 1. The number 58, Porsche Consulting, Wright Motorsports 911 GT3R.
Yeah, Patrick Long, he lost a little bit of ground there when the number 4 Milner Corvette went back past him. But yes, he's certainly got the hammer down still in the early stage of this race, as Patrick Long, and he's trying to hang on to that top 3.
Remember you said that we had Ford, BMW and Porsche with laps within milliseconds of each other. Well, the 4th manufacturer now has weighed in the shape of Antonio Garcia in the number 3 Corvette, and he's now got the fastest lap of the race, 1:42.7. Take a bow, IMSA Technical, who have to try and balance these cars in terms of pace, performance, fuel consumption, fuel fill, all of those things. And trust me, they don't do this by sitting around a Ouija board and drawing straws or sticking a finger in the air. This is data driven, and the amount of data that is collected is probably more than put Apollo on the moon from any one of these racing cars. And then the brain power and computing skills of the IMSA technical department put all of that together and come up with what's called a balance of performance. And those 3 words together, sometimes thought of as a little bit of a phrase that should be avoided, but in both GTLM and GTD, GT Le Mans and GT Daytona, it has been working exceptionally well for the last couple of seasons, and it just gives us better and better racing.
It does, doesn't it? Just brilliant. And as you say that, by the way, Earl Bamber, who's still catching up the rest of the field, he's just gone purple too. A new fastest lap race, 1:42.600 for Earl Bamber.
Wow. And that's a new lap record?
No, we're still half away.
Yes.
Still half a second away from that.
Yeah, 42.1, wasn't it? Yeah. Yes, I remember you saying that, yeah. So we're getting there.
Yeah.
Remember, there was a bit of rain overnight here, so the track not totally green, but certainly not as rubbered up as it might be at this part of the weekend. 2 hours and 22 minutes to go. Richard Westbrook by 1.3 seconds. Then the black number 24 BMW in second. The battle is on between De Filippi in the white BMW number 25 and the bright yellow Chevy Corvette. They're at Oak Tree now and having to deal with Justin Marks. Earl Bamber's only about 8 seconds or 9 seconds up the road from the leaders now, and Bamber's got to keep his head down through this traffic. He'll have to take chances. He does not want to go a lap down after having to come into the pits for a right rear Michelin and a drive-through. He's been driving really hard to stay on the lead lap through the top of the hill at the roller coaster. Turn 14, 15, 16, and then down to the hog pen at 17. The battle for 3rd position, De Filippi in the white and M Sport striped BMW, the coupe, the new M8 coupe. Looking at picture, America's sports car right in behind it. The last of the front-engined Corvettes, as we now know. And the last of the front-engined racing Corvettes as well, with the new C8R having been testing recently. We already knew that the street car was going to be a mid-engined car. As far back as the early part of this year, I seem to remember reading in Autocar. And the new street car C8 will rumoured to start with a V6 engine.
Did you see what happened on lap 2, Colin De Filippi? All of a sudden he lost a fair bit of ground to his teammates.
Traffic, I'm going to say. They were passing Justin Marks.
Maybe he just caught him in the wrong place.
Caught him going up through the S's and dived up the inside going into Oak Tree, Jeremy.
That's what it was.
Is what I'd say.
Yep. So
easy to lose a bit of ground in there because there is only one racing line in various parts of this circuit. Our Porsche keys to the race. If you're going to pass, make it count. React quickly on your tactics and your pit stops, and my goodness, didn't the Porsche GT team have to do that early on with Earl Bamber.
And by the way, Patrick Long has caught up again with that leading trio, so it's now the Mercedes, Lexus, BMW and Porsche, Bleekemolen, Hawksworth, Oberlin and Long, or 33, 50, 96 and 58, who are nose to tail in the battle for GTD.
Bleekemolen, Hawksworth, Oberlin and Long are a firm of solicitors in Los Angeles, aren't they? They specialise in entertainment contract law, I believe.
Certainly experts in it.
The experts in entertainment, I'll give you that. Through to complete a lap and down to the first corner. Westbrook just being closed in a little bit that lap around. Not much, a couple of tenths by Edwards in that black and M Sport coloured BMW.
So it's less than a second.
Yes, for the first time in a little while.
For the first time in the last half a dozen laps, that's right.
Conor De Filippi with a 42.7, he's hauling, and he's closing back in on that lead pair as they go through traffic. He has to mind because he's got Antonio Garcia right up his tailpipes.
Yeah, that's right. And Joey Hand, he's also closed up. He'd fallen a couple of seconds back a couple of laps ago, but he's just turned his best lap in car number 66 to close on to that leading battle in GTLM. Cat and mouse stuff here, and really interesting at this stage in the game.
The rise and fall of the 3¼ mile circuit at VIR as the leaders are on the long back straight, which dips and rises a couple of times. Very tricky braking area into the complex at the top of the hill, the roller coaster. You can't see the part of the circuit that you're aiming for, and the car is unloaded just when you want to be braking and getting the most traction from the front wheels and the retardation effect. And it's like falling off the end of the world there. You've got to have that belief that the racetrack hasn't moved since the last time around, which of course it hasn't. But you've got to have that blind faith every time you come round. Get it right, get the braking done, get the car turned in. And that's what Richard Westbrook is doing at the front of the field at the moment. He's just stretched out to a second again. About a second, a little bit more between the top 3 or 4. Now these GT Le Mans cars are very aero dependent, particularly at the front end. That means that, like some Formula cars, if you get too close to the car ahead, it's difficult to follow. You start putting too much energy into the front, in this case Michelin tyres. And then you get what the drivers talk about, aero push, understeer. You turn the wheel and the car doesn't want to turn the amount that you've put into the steering. And at that point, the car isn't working efficiently and neither is the tyre. The tyre is scrubbing forward across the track surface instead of turning laterally across the track surface. And that's bad. It's bad because you lose time. It's bad because you cause excessive wear and put excessive heat into the tyres. So what you'll see is these guys closing up, maybe having a little look down in the first corner. If they can't make it, you might see them drop back as they go up the hill and then try it again a lap or two later. That doesn't mean they're not trying. It means they're having to think, Jeremy, about where they have even the tiniest advantage on the car in front.
Yeah, and you know, they've got to look after their tires. It is, you know, as we talked about earlier on, it's hot out there, it's sticky, it's hard work. The tyres here, whether it's the Michelins on the GTLM cars or the Continentals on the GT Daytona cars, they're working really, really hard. And you know, the drivers here, they've got to keep these, you know, look after their tyres at least a little bit. They're pretty durable these days, I have to be said.
Very durable, yeah.
But still, you can't afford to abuse them, so you have to be as smooth as you can.
It's not a question of them potentially not lasting, Jeremy,
No.
but if you take too much life out of them, you have a performance disadvantage to someone who's looked after them a little more. And, you know, we talk every single week about the fine margins between not just getting on the podium, but, you know, winning the race. You can't afford to have any disadvantage to the cars around you, because these are the guys at the top of their game.
That's very true. Just looking at the lap times of Tom Milner, by the way, he's consistently now losing a second or more to that whole pack of cars. He's got past. It took him a while to get through all the GT Daytona cars, and he's pulling away from them, yes, but he is losing ground by, as I say, a good second a lap to the rest of the field. That's car number 4.
May have taken a bit too much out of his tyres, Jeremy, we've just been talking about.
Could have done.
Good battle with Cooper McNeil and John Potter. Cooper McNeil in the WeatherTech number 63 Ferrari, going into the first corner now. May try the old over and under manoeuvre. John Potter, who's been driving, well, the best I've seen him. He drives with confidence these days. He's been doing such a good job. Andy Lally, teammate to the 44 in the 44 Audi. Super impressed with how John's come along. And Cooper McNeil and that WeatherTech Ferrari team also finding some form. Had a couple of sessions up at Lime Rock Park a couple of events ago where that car topped the timing sheets, and Gunnar Jeanette back with Cooper this weekend. Cooper starting the race, and a big race for them next time out as they go to the WeatherTech Laguna Seca Raceway. That's what, 3 weeks time? They'll want to put on a good show there with that new sponsorship deal over on the West Coast. Cooper leading the Ferrari Challenge at the moment as well, with I think just a couple of rounds to go. He's pretty much got that wrapped up. I don't think he can go away for a beach holiday and miss the last couple of rounds, but he certainly had a handy lead, dominated that this year.
Yeah, he's getting a lot of driving in his Cooper, and it's paying dividends here as well. You know, he's had a raft of different co-drivers. There seem to be musical chairs in the co-driver seat number 63 car, but it's been effective. Cooper is well placed in the championship. You know, he's driving effectively solo in terms of the championship for this season, but he's up into the 4th position, and not that far behind Jerome Blekemolen and Ben Keating.
11 points, yeah. And ahead of Alvaro Parent by...
Yeah, Alvaro, of course, had to miss
yeah, he's ahead of Alvaro Parent by 12 points in the championship. 2 hours and 12 minutes to go. Let's have a look at our Cadillac race update before it all kicks off again. Leading in GT Daytona, Jerome Blekemolen. Ben Keating had a birthday this weekend. He'll be getting into the 33 white and green Mercedes before the end of the race. Blekemolen now just half a second ahead of the 15 Lexus of Jack Hawkes, with Bill Oberlin same distance behind in 3rd in the 96 BMW, the Turner BMW. At the front of the field, Richard Westbrook by 0.8 of a second. That's all to the black BMW number 24 of John Edwards. Connor De Filippi, his teammate, just a second further back, and he is under pressure from Antonio Garcia, another second further back. Then it's Patrick Pilet and Joey Hand having a cracking battle. Pilet right with Antonio Garcia now, and Joey Hand closing in on them. That's the top 6 in GT Le Mans with 2 hours and 11 minutes to go. That's your Cadillac race update. Cadillac, because real racers never take days off. Old adage in motor racing, isn't there? If you're standing still, you're going backwards. You kind of feel that this year, Jeremy, particularly in these GT categories where everybody is pushing as hard as they can every single race to find that unfair advantage, as Mark Donoghue would have said. Trying to find anything that gives them the edge, whether it's a slightly different setup, tyre pressures, changing their drivers around, as you mentioned with the WeatherTech Scuderia Corsa team. Really, such tiny differences in performance between the cars. You've got to maximise your advantage. Beautiful weather, sun is out, temperature coming up. And with 2 hours and 11 minutes to go, This is just starting to warm up nicely on the track as well. Richard Westbrook settled into his rhythm at the front of the field, and he'll be absolutely delighted that the first 17 laps have gone by there, Jeremy, without any major dramas for the man who put in that sensational pole lap as the track was drying in qualifying yesterday.
Yeah, the pace of the leader has dropped off by about a half a second since the fastest laps of the race, which are all set inside the first 10 laps of this race, settling now into consistent mid to low 1 minute 43. It's 1:43.34 last time around, 1:43.3 the previous lap as well. That has enabled John Edwards to close in a little bit. You remember the gap was out to over a second, then it came down to a bit less than a second, then over again, and now down to just over half a second last time around. So clearly John Edwards is able to keep pace with Richard Westbrook, at least at this stage in the game. And all of the contenders at the front here, I'm sure they've got more than a weather eye on the fuel gauge. They're trying to be as conservative as they can, trying to go as long as they can before they make their first pit stop.
Let's take an update from Shea in the pit lane, who's with BMW's Alexander Sims.
Alexander, only a couple hours ago, things were looking pretty bad when morning warm-up didn't exactly go your way. First off, what actually happened there?
It was just a brake caliper issue, so it probably looked worse than it was actually. It was quite a quick change. The boys did a good job, but yeah, no, the car wasn't at any risk in terms of its reliability for this race, I don't think, so it was fine.
Well, clearly everything's okay since the car's up to third. Connor had a great start out there. You've got your team car just ahead of you. Feeling a little bit optimistic at this point in the race?
Yeah, I mean, the field's incredibly close, so there's no guarantees whatsoever, but absolutely the start's gone our way so far. You guys are doing a great job, and we'll just keep trying to make no mistakes and have clean pit stops and see how it goes.
How do you keep cool when the weather's this warm and you're under a black tarp?
Yeah, it's because hot topic, as one might say. Yeah, no, a bit difficult.
Good luck in the race.
Cheers.
Very much a thoughtful driver, very dry sense of humour. Mr. Sims, I enjoy spending time with him. I said earlier on, Jeremy, I think it was in warm-up this morning, spent a little bit of time with him at Chicago at O'Hare after the last race. You quite often, obviously, people are travelling home to similar parts of the world, and you get in the airports at the same time, possibly on the same flights, and exceptionally dry sense of humour, but very much a student of the sport is Alexander Sims. Always good to have a chat with him. He's always asking questions about other forms of racing and reading up. Likes a bit of music as well. Zones out at times, but that's fine. These guys have to be able to get their concentration. Prepared for his flight in the same way as he would have been preparing for a race. He's clearly got a regime that he goes through. Settled himself in before he got on the day flight from O'Hare to London Heathrow.
Just look at the gaps between the cars in GT Daytona, just stretching out just a little bit. 1.4 seconds of lead now for Bleekemolen over Hawksworth, the Mercedes over the Lexus. Second also back to Bill Oberlin, and Patrick Long, he's close behind, he's within a second, but not absolutely in his wheel tracks like he was before. And that quartet, they've pulled out more than 8 seconds over Carl Marcelli and Mario Farnbacher, who still remain pretty close together. Then a gap back to Madison Snow, a longer gap back to John Potter and Cooper McNeil. In the meantime, behind all that lot, Earl Bamber, he's still circulating just a little bit quicker than the overall race leaders, but really not making any ground on them. He's a long way behind. But Tommy Milner is definitely losing ground to the leaders the whole time. Now 31.3 seconds behind the tail end of the group, which is Joey Hand, and that's been going out by about that margin on a regular basis. More than a second that Tommy Milner is losing out. That's curious. Whether he damaged a splitter on the car in the contact.
Well, that's a good point.
Or damaged something else when he went slithering across the grass. Conceivably, because that is the car that has set the fastest lap of the weekend, and we know how well the Corvettes are suited here to VIR. So I wouldn't have expected him to drop back quite that quickly.
Great return to form from the bright red Lexus, the chrome red Lexus, and Jack Hawksworth Last time we saw that car at a racetrack before coming here, it was looking rather pre-loved. Front end of the car was pretty much gone. Jack had a nasty accident going down the hill to turn 8 through the Hurry Downs area of Road America, and that is fast. Problem with his foot on the brake, couldn't get the car slowed down, head on into the tyre wall, and that car was done for the weekend. But they've, pardon the pun, bounced back from that, and so has Jack. Put the car on pole position. The Lexus looking pretty good from at the time it rolled off the truck for VIRGT Racing. Sitting, as Jeremy said, about 1.5 seconds away from the leaders at the moment, and about the same away from Bill Oberlin in the 96 Turner BMW. Richard Westbrook by just on a second. Get the feeling, Jeremy, that Richard Westbrook is just managing this, keeping everybody. As soon as it gets down to 8/10, he puts a little spurt on and just squirts out to about 1.2, 1.3 seconds. And there'll be people saying now, hearing me say that, don't be stupid, Hindhoff, they can't know that. But these guys do. They have a mental clock in their head. And if somebody says it's down to 0.8 of a second over the radio, Rich, it's down to 0.8 of a second. John Edwards is gaining on you. Can we have a 43.3 next time around? And they reel off a 43.3. It's extraordinary, isn't it?
It is rather, yeah. But yeah, they'll certainly have an eye on the fuel gauge. You know, Richard Westbrook is renowned for being pretty frugal behind the wheel of the racing car. He doesn't expend as much energy in terms of the fuel as as many of the other drivers out there. As you can see, the gaps there just stretching out a little bit, except for between the number 911 Porsche and Joey Hand. But you know, he'll be trying to conserve as much fuel. The longer he can go before he makes his first stop, he'll be happier with that. If he can run a little bit more out there before everybody else, there's an opportunity to gain some time, because you're still running on hot tyres where everybody else is coming into the pits and going out of the pits on brand or either new or used or certainly changed but cold tyres.
The other thing about the Chip Ganassi Racing organization is that they are spread to all 4 points of the win this weekend. Running at Bristol last night in the NASCAR Big Series. They've got Pocono this weekend also for IndyCar. That's gone green right now. So a lot of the bigwigs that sometimes sit on the Ford Chip Ganassi pit box are not here this weekend, leaving the main chair open to the lead engineer, Brad Goldberg, for that number 67 Ford GT. The last time that happened was Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. And what car won there? Oh yeah, the 67.
Yeah, don't look at us, boss. Just don't look at us. We know what we're doing. Live from trackside with just over 2 hours to go. This is IMSA Radio RS2 on the Radio Show Limited network. That's the permanent home 24/7 for IMSA content, whether it's live, race replays, features. That's the place you need to be. And also on XM Sirius. Welcome if you're listening on Sirius 138, XM 202 this weekend and throughout the season. Maybe travelling around at the moment. Cracking race going on here with Richard Westbrook. As we look at our Cadillac race in-race update, Richard Westbrook leading overall by again just under a second, 0.9 of a second. The Ford looks absolutely brilliant in this sunshine. Just made a slight change to the livery this year. Still red, white and blue, still the stripes in the same place, but they're all metallic colours that if you were lucky enough to have been granted permission to have one, you could get your street Ford GT in that red, white and blue. Single one of those colours rather than all three of them, I would expect. But it has really transformed how those cars look in bright sunshine. In GT Daytona, the story of the weekend so far is the number 48 Lamborghini, sitting in 7th position at the moment with Madison Snow, the driver who started it, having qualified this car for Paul Miller Racing. But this car missed all bar the first 10 minutes of free practice 1 and all of free practice 2 when its engine decided that some of its internal components were going to become external. And that was a hard day's work for the Paul Miller Racing mechanics. Not something that was unknown to them. Exactly the same thing happened at Lime Rock Park earlier in the season. They performed the same heart of the beast transplant for the Lamborghini Huracan and Madison Snow and Brian Sellers delivered a victory. They lead the championship, coming in this weekend by a handy 18 points.
And despite missing all of that track time on Friday, they bounced back super fast on Saturday morning. Brian Sellers was right up to the top of the charts right away. He did about 8 or 9 laps during the Saturday morning session, then handed over to Madison Snow. That was the first time he'd driven the car in the weekend. Within 4 laps, he'd absolutely matched, actually fractionally quicker than Brian Sellers. That just shows to me that how familiar they are with this car. They're super happy with it. They know it's predictable and it's comfortable to drive. But certainly Madison is falling back here, and he's now, what, 20 seconds probably behind the leader now. He's 20 seconds now behind the leader in the category, and that's not what they're used to. He's in the 7th position.
But only 1 position on track behind their nearest competition in the championship, Jeremy. And what has been clear right the way through this 2018 GT Daytona season for Paul Miller Racing is they'll take what's on offer points-wise. If they've got a 5th or a 6th or a 7th place car, and maybe that's what they've got this weekend here, then they'll take those points. And if they can outperform that, great, but they'll do it without risk, because they have got that 18-point championship lead at the moment, and there's no sense in trying to push for a position that'll get you a couple of extra points on the track this weekend and risk a DNF, which might take points away from you. Just under 2 hours to go then. Let's finish off the Cadillac race update in GTD. 1.5 seconds now between the 33 AMG GT3 Mercedes of Jerome Blake-Molen and the 15 Lexus of Jack Hawksworth, and the same distance still from Oberlin up to 2nd place. Pat Long has closed into about a second away from the back of the yellow and blue BMW ahead of him. At the front of the field, Richard Westbrook has clear track as he comes across the line now to complete the 24th lap. There goes Jonathan Edwards in 2nd in the BMW number 24. His teammate about another second further back. Antonio Garcia still trying to get on terms there in the Chevrolet number 4, the Chevy Corvette number 4, with Patrick Pilet, who seems to have been sitting in behind that Chevy Corvette by about half a second, well, ever since we started the race, quite frankly. And he's now got a second on Joey Hand. Earl Bamber, by the way, who had that issue with the right rear tyre after contact with Tommy Milner, and then had to come through for a drive-through, having been assessed responsibility for that, weaving around on the back straight, causing that contact. He is 15th overall, just gaining on the back of Madison Snow, our leader in GTD championship terms, and is 1 minute and 7 seconds behind the leader on a 1 minute and 43 lap.
Yeah, so he's actually made a little bit of ground on the overall lead. He's now beginning to work his way through the GTD cars. He got past John Potter and Cooper McNeil on that last lap, or a couple of laps ago now. But he's got a long way to go before they catch him, and without a full course caution here, that'll be very difficult for him to do. Meanwhile, the gap from back to Tommy Milner continues to expand by the rate of about 1.3 seconds a lap. That's been consistent now for well, virtually from the beginning of the race. So Tommy Milner isn't going to be a factor here, or isn't a factor at this stage, but still, there's still just less now than 2 hours remaining in this race. Another 3 or 4 laps will be waiting for the first round of pit stops. See if anything changes then. GT Daytona again. Well, Jack Hawks was just close to within a second on that last lap. He'd fallen as much as a second and a half, or almost 2 seconds behind Jerome Blake-Molen, but he's chiseled away at that. His last lap was about a half a second quicker, so he's now within a second again. But then the gaps between the rest of the cars there. Carl Marcelli is falling fairway back in 4th position. He's now a full 10 seconds behind Patrick Long. But none of the GTD cars running in nose to tail formation as they had been.
I think we're not that far away from GT Le Mans pit stops, because Richard Westbrook is starting to push again now. He's just gone through the GT Daytona traffic, the back end of the GT Daytona field, into the middle part of the top 10 now, and he's pushing hard. You could see a slight difference in the body language in that Ford number 67 as he went up through the S's last time around, and Richard perhaps just using a little more curb than he was before. And now, of course, John Edwards and Conor De Filippi, Antonio Garcia and Patrick Pilet and Joey Hand have all got to do the same thing. The top 6 are only within 5 seconds of each other in GT Le Mans. Then there's a bit of a gap to Tom Milner, who's recovering from that early skirmish with Earl Bamber, who's 90 seconds now behind the leader. So a little bit more than I thought, actually. My arithmetic was rubbish earlier on as I was trying to add that up on 2 different parts of the timing screen. So 91 seconds, Earl Bamber behind our leader on a 1 minute and 44 second lap. So that leaves him some 13 seconds ahead of the leader. So 13 seconds away from being lapped, if you prefer to look at it that way. John Potter doing a great job as ever. He'll hand over to Andy Lally. The Magnus Racing Audi still scrapping with Cooper McNeil. And Cooper McNeil still following in the wheel tracks of that grey and green Audi, heading up the beautiful, flowing, challenging S's. Dab on the brakes at turn 8. Just slow the car down. Get it over down on the suspension as you go over the rise. There's been a coming together between the number 93 Acura of Justin Marks and the number 15 of Jack Hawksworth. It's been reviewed. No further action required. Racing incident. Then, in that case, that must have been when Jack Hawksworth was he putting a lap on that car? Yeah, must have been. We are inside the drive time for those who have such things. So Shea Adam, does that mean we're starting to see some drivers limbering up on the pit wall? It's a good clue this weekend because they don't want to be hanging around in the heat, so they'll only come out when they're a couple of laps away from being needed.
And the advantage goes to the ones who have a view of the porta potties, because there's always a line at those right before the driver's stints get going.
So tactics there as well in terms of pit stops. Got to be careful how I say that.
Exactly. You've got to make multiple pit stops on a racing occasion. But the first car to come in and make a driver change is Andy Lally, taking over the 44 Magnus Racing Audi. He's installing himself behind the wheel of that car, and we talked to him on the grid a bit earlier on. He was so excited to get going out here today. Now a lot more pit boards are starting to wave, John. The seal has been broken, and more cars will be coming in as Andy gets heat into his Contis with a nice little bit of white smoke. The Turner guys are also up on the wall for the number 96. Robbie Foley will not be getting into that. This will be fuel and tires only for Bill Oberlin. But for the car that won the last time out, the number 58 Wright Motorsport Porsche, they're going to take out Pat Long, let him cool down a little bit, put him in a room for 5 minutes, because that seemed to work the other day, and then unleash him after Christina Nielsen, who will be taking over now, gets her drive time done.
Thank you, Shea. Like that a lot. Nice analogy. Shea Adam with that Continental Tire pit lane report. This battle at the front of GT Le Mans is outstanding. I know they're not side by side, wheel to wheel, door handle to door handle, but they might as well be, Jeremy, because they are trading less than tenths of seconds at the top of the field. The top 6, 43.4, 43.3, 43.3, 43.5, 43.1. That's not their best laps, that's their last laps, and the lap before that, and the lap before that, and the lap before that. They've all been within a tenth or so of each other for the last half dozen laps or more. Even fighting through traffic. Magnificent stuff. Fabulous pit stop from Turner and that BMW. Bill Oberlin now out of that car. Andy Lally installed in the 44. So those guys now, well, they won't be able to go to the end from here, so they will need another pit stop, of course. Driver change, 4 tyres. And Albolan stayed in that car. I was, right, okay. So haven't yet seen Robbie Foley in that machine. Andy Lally did get into the 44 car. An hour and 50 minutes to go, so it's 110 minutes, so you'd expect them then to come in with about 55 minutes to go, and that would kind of work, wouldn't it, for one more stop for the GTDs?
Yep. A couple of laps probably before we see GTLM cars onto pit lane, and that's exactly why Richard Westbrook is trying to stretch out a little bit of a lead. But here's some battling here as the GTLM cars work their way through some traffic here. This is some tight moments at the top of the hill down through the roller coaster, and number 86 car there, Mario Farnbacher, well, finally there he gives a little bit of room there for one of the BMWs, but he has no option but to turn in there on the Corvette.
Yeah, and that is really, really scary moment for even a experienced driver like Farnbacher, as Richard Westbrook is on pit lane. So the first to come in, and that's unusual for Westies. Normally gets good fuel mileage, Adam.
And the other big thing that means is John Edwards leads in the BMW. The 67 will be doing a driver change. It is Ryan Briscoe getting in, Richard Westbrook getting out. They might be doing 2 driver changes for this race, 4 Michelins and fuel. The number 86 Meyer Shank Racing Acura is also in. Catherine Legg getting in, and Mario Farnbacher has jumped out. They're doing 4 tires and fuel for the car that comes into the race second in the championship. And almost every GTD team up on the wall waiting for their cars to come in, as there is a wheel nut rolling across the pit lane. That would have come off the 86 Acura. The Ford is still in the pit lane. They're checking the rear of the car, and Westy is sent. Briscoe, excuse me.
I was going to say, right, okay, that's all right. I was going to check that. So Ryan, it's hot in the pit lane. Adam giving us that news. So the first car in then, the Chip Ganassi GT67 pole sitting car, which has led since the drop of the green flag. Westbrook out, Ryan Briscoe into that car. John Edwards leads Conor De Filippi, BMW from BMW. And the GTD leading AMG GT3 comes in. Jerome Blakemolen gives up that lead, and the pole sitting Lexus goes through to lead that particular race. And Shea Adam has this Continental Tire pit lane update.
Jerome not only giving up the lead, but giving up the seat, because Ben Keating, birthday boy yesterday, is taking over the reins of the mighty Mercedes. They are changing all 4 Contis and giving Ben a lot of things to play with. The GTLM leader has come in the meanwhile. John Edwards in that black number 24 BMW will be getting out, as indeed he now has. Jesse Krohn taking his turn behind the wheel of the car. They came in with the bright number 1 on the side of the door, and the number 58, the Wright Motorsport Porsche, also in the pit lane. Christina Nielsen has already gotten into that car. Patrick Long out, and they are doing fuel and tires, as everything looks good on the pit stops for both the 24 and the number 33. The Mercedes leaves, and the 24 BMW still up on its air jacks, waiting as a windshield tariff comes off, just waiting on fuel for that machine, as now one of the world's best driving machines, as a BMW frequently is, takes its leave of the pit box, and the sister car should be coming in the not too distant future. But now, Alan Rickton saying that the other BMW, John, is our leader, the number 25.
That is correct, Shea.
Hey!
That's the white car that's taken over from the black car. It's the best way to remember that. Antonio Garcia then and Corvette are just a second away from the lead. Now these stops, this early stop from the Fords, that's interesting to me. The 67 car, Jeremy, came on lap 30, and the 67's back in. The 67 is back in, and that looks to me as though that's a penalty. Shea Adam.
It's gone behind the wall, John.
Oh,
this is drama for our championship leaders. It came back down the pit lane, nearly collided with the 63, the Scuderia Corse Ferrari, as it was sent from its pit box right as the 67 was coming. It's going back to the garage. That would be...
Shea hasn't got there. It's been stopped by its crew the moment it turned right. The right-hand door has come up, and it's not going any further. I think it's been shut off. Yeah, it's been shut off, and the back, the engine.
Sensor, it's reading 0, so it's not like it's forward.
Pressure sensor reading 0 on something. Wow. Can clearly hear that from the team. The engine covers come off, and the IMSA officials have asked to have that car pushed out of the exit part of the pit area, which is reasonable. They were trying to get a quick fix on it there, Jeremy, I think, and roll it back round.
Massively significant for the championship, of course. It's incredible how for the Ford team, the Ford Chip Ganassi team, one of the cars has a great weekend, the other one has a horrible weekend, and it's just been alternating each of the last 5 races.
It's a sine wave, an inverse sine wave of performance for the 66 and 67. I'll tell you what, Jeremy.
It's a mechanical, it's the spring pushing on the clutch.
Let's have a listen.
It's reading 0 pressure, so it's not like there's a bunch of pressure releases the clutch, you know.
Right, it's a clutch issue. It's a clutch and gearbox issue.
Nuts are coming off or something like that doesn't have enough driving force.
All we can do is live
And they think it's a mechanical issue rather than an hydraulic issue. That's done. That's done for the day, Jeremy. Shea Adam, whilst that's going on, give us an update of who's been in with this Continental Tire pit lane report.
Both of the Lexuses, as Jeremy would say, have come into the pit lane. The 14 has had a driver change, and it is now Dominic Baumann behind the wheel of that. And David Hennemeyer Hansen has taken over from Jack Hawksworth in the 15, the red Lexus. We also had the 48 Paul Miller Racing Lamborghini that leads the GTD Championship come in for their pit stop. Madison Snow out, Brian Sellers in. 4 tires and fuel for all of those cars. And the 25 BMW now has Alexander Sims behind the wheel as we have a Ford and a Corvette in the pits. It is Jan Magnussen taking over for Antonio Garcia in the 3 Corvette. Fuel tires and Michelin on that car. They will be so happy to get a pit stop competition directly against the 66 Ford GT because Corvette racing thrives off of their pit stops. For the 66, it's fuel tires and a driver change, so that will be Dirk Mueller's turn in the 66 as the 67 is now driving back toward the garage area. The Corvette has fired up. The Ford is still on its air jacks. Waiting, it's a battle. Whose refueling rig is going to come out first? It's a Ford. The Ford gets less fuel, but the Corvette is right on its tail.
Shea Adam with that update from the pit lane drama then in the last few minutes as the championship leader and the race leader and pole sitter is behind the wall with what looks to be a race-ending issue. Clutch problem, transmission problem, but it sounded as if it was mechanical. They were worried about the clutch either being completely broken or clutch bolts coming loose. Whatever it is, it requires the engine, that EcoBoost engine, to come out, and that's not something they're going to be able to do within the 1 hour 43 minutes. So the day is done. That car will finish in 8th position. Now that is a huge blow to their championship hopes. In the meantime,
Patrick Pilet finally becomes the last of the leaders to pit in the Porsche number 911. So we saw the 20-foot number 24
Milner's
car.
not been in either.
That's true. That's true. That's the car that's been running quite a long way behind everybody else, and running. Yeah, that's the only car that hasn't yet pitted now.
And I presume they splashed Bamba when he got the new tyre at lap 4. Shea Adam is down at the Porsche GT team.
Well, they splashed Bamber and gave him 4 new tires when he came in for that. So yes, it was a complete pit stop. It was Nick Tandy taking over from Patrick Pilet. The car just moved. It engaged in gear and stalled before the fuel nozzle had been pulled out. That might be a penalty for the number 911 Porsche, but it didn't move very far. It didn't clear its pit box, so it might be the same case as what happened with the 4 Corvette at Washington Sun, but that was moving because of gravity. And speaking of the number 4 Corvette, that car is in. Miller bringing his slightly battle-torn number 4 Corvette. There's damage to the left front of the car, and I'm sure there's more on the right as well. Oliver Gavin taking over, and again, the driver assistant changer had Ollie by a leash because holding onto the helmet plug as he runs around the car to get in. They are doing 4 tires and fuel for the number 4 Corvette as well.
I love that mental picture of Ollie Gavin on a leash. That's great. Love it to bits. And then they literally unleash him then when they put him in the car.
And
go on, Jeremy.
No, well, after the pit stop said, yes, well, we'll have to just wait and see where Tandy comes out.
Jeremy, big damage, you know, on the left front of that Corvette, from where the Bamba,
it was quite a hit, wasn't it?
It was a much bigger hit than we thought. There's a chunk of Corvette bodywork that's hanging loose there. Surprised they didn't pull that off, actually. to stop it becoming a bigger problem later on.
Yeah, it's pretty stout, that carbon fibre on the front of that car. But looking back at the GT Daytona cars, we're watching David Heinemeier-Hansen aboard car number 15, but 12 seconds up the road after that first round of pit stops, remarkably, is number 96 BMW with Bill Omlin at the wheel. That's
fantastic, a fantastic pit stop for the Turner Motorsport team. And remember, they didn't change the driver. So, I mean, it's fuel dependent, but they clearly put as much fuel in as they felt they needed. Wonder if they short fueled it. I'm not sure what the point of that would be, but it was a new set of tyres and a tank of fuel. Now, that should be exactly the same time as everybody else, but my goodness, they did it quickly.
Yeah, well, and the point about that is David Heinemeier-Hansen and Ben Keating, the AMs of the Pro-Am pairings have taken over from their pros that started each of those cars. Jack Hawksworth and Jerome Blekemolen in turn. So Bill Omlin, who's sharing that to number 96 BMW with Robbie Foley, who's been very quick this weekend, by the way. Bill, we talked about it at the top of the show, track position really, really important. So Bill Omlin is going to put the hammer down, trying to pull away, hand over that car to Robbie Foley in the lead, and then we'll see what Robbie can do.
Everybody else chase him down.
Yeah, absolutely right. And then try and get past him.
Yes.
And as I say, Robbie's been fast. He's been virtually matched to Bill in terms of lap times this weekend. It's been a really, really good weekend for Robbie Foley.
After the pit stops are all done, which they are now, let's give you a Cadillac race update with an hour and 40 minutes to go. So we've had an hour of racing here at VIR.
And by the way, Nick Tandy did get out of the lead, in the lead.
Yes, that was going to be my point on the Cadillac race update.
And that is exactly why they stayed out longer than everybody else. The 24 car and number 67, they were 67 was had a problem. Number 24 car was the first car to come onto the pit lane, effectively, of the leading group.
Yeah.
And then followed a couple of laps later by the other guys.
So here's the Cadillac in-race update. Nick Tandy by almost 2 seconds in the number 911 Porsche from Jesse Kron in the 24, the black BMW. And off goes the 25 car. That's going to be problems. Oh, it's hit David Heinemeier-Hansen coming down the hill to the final corner. The 25 BMW with Alexander Sims on board lost it under braking and T-boned the 3 GT car. Now, what happened to the BM? Here it comes. Heinemeier-Hansen's going to try and get into the pit lane. He's going to have to wait until everybody gets by, and he does, and dives straight into the pit lane.
It's a bit dodgy. He's going to get
does he,
wagging for that.
Or does he drive round with a broken car?
Well, exactly. You get at least
not his fault he was out there, Jeremy.
Absolutely right. And he did. He was clearly watching and paying attention there before he pulled across there.
Yeah.
But there is a commitment line there which you're supposed to. That was my point.
Yes.
He did exactly the right thing there. You're absolutely correct.
Well, don't know what happened there to Sims. We'll go back to the Cadillac race update in a moment. Looks like he lost it at the middle part of the hill and came down the grass where there's no grip for the Michelin tyres. And David Heinemeier-Hansen was the unwitting part of that accident. Would never have known what hit him, coming from the right-hand side of the car while he was sitting on the left. Oh, it was a mistake right at the top of the hill before he even turned in. He was side by side with the 66 Ford. They were battling for position. So that was the 66 Ford and the BMW for third place. And just got the right-hand side Michelin's slightly onto the grass and then couldn't turn back in again. And poor David Heinemeier-Hansen would not have known what was coming. And a masterful piece of avoidance by Jan Magnussen in the number 3 Corvette who was coming down the hill. Now, the incident is, I mean, is that avoidable contact, or is that, I don't know. You would say
50 and 25 under review. Well, I mean, the 15 didn't do anything wrong, that's for sure, obviously, because he was just T-boned. Number 25 car, 25 car was the culprit there. He was on the outside line and trying to go around the outside of the left-hand kick. That wasn't going to work, I don't think. So.
The Ford had a big wiggle going into 15. And then, was there a touch then between the Ford and the BMW that put the BMW offline? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think that probably should say maybe 66.
66 and 25. Yeah, go back and have a look at that from other angles. But, I mean, certainly the impact for David Hennemeyer Hansen, who now has got a right rear puncture. So did David drive straight through there, through the pit lane? So he must have, well, did he expect it was going to be a full course yellow, or did they wave him through? But he's now got a flat right rear from the impact. That was where he was hit by the 25 BMW, which has come out of that remarkably unscathed. Just a bit of scuffage on the left front wheel arch, the fender there. And that is under review, that impact between the 15 and the 25. And the 15 Lexus will have to come back into the pit lane, Adam.
He does this, just that, John, and as a bit of irony, drives through a bunch of grass and dirt that he has left at the pit entrance from when he came clear across the track into the pit lane, as was specifically described by race control in the meeting. Do not do that, but they have changed all 4 Continentals, no fuel added, and David Hennemeyer Hansen, in a big haze of smoke, goes back out of the pits.
Can only imagine he is very disappointed, Hindhoff says diplomatically.
He's had no luck at all, for goodness sake, this season. I mean, didn't even get to start last time out because Jack Hawksworth had the problem. It's just, crazy misfortune. Golly.
So I think what happened there is they might have just cleaned the radiator ducts on that car when it came back in. And the puncture happened, of course, the moment he went out again. So he really has had, this is David Hennemeyer Hansen in the 15, he really has had no luck whatsoever. Back out on the circuit now. Let's do a Cadillac in-race update then, which is what I was trying to do there. In GT Daytona, Bill Oberlin leads by 18.5 seconds from flying. Ben Keating, who's doing a really good job in second place. He's 5 seconds ahead of Christina Nielsen. 96 BMW, 33 Mercedes. That's the green and white car, the white and green car, should I say. The red and white Wright Motorsport number 58 of Christina Nielsen is in third. Fourth, Catherine Legg now aboard the 86, second in the championship. And fifth, the Lexus number 14. That's the blue Lexus in the control, under the control of Dominic Baumann. 25 takes the penalty, a drive-through for incident responsibility with the 15 Lexus. So the BMW judged to be at fault there, which that's reasonable. But why did he get on the grass in the first place? And did he jump or was he pushed? Yeah. That will be the question, I'm sure, that RLL will be asking of race control and seeing if there was some sanction to be applied. Not our job to decide that. We'll leave that to greater minds than ours. Our Cadillac race update continues with Nick Tandy leading now by 2 seconds. Last time around, 1:43.781 for Tandy. Jesse Krohn, second place in the black BMW, 1:43.703. My goodness, that is very close indeed. With Dirk Muller now in the remaining Ford, the 66 car, 7 seconds further back in third position. Where's the 67 car? Answer behind the wall, and I don't think we're going to see that again. We'll get Shea Adam to get a definitive answer from the team. In fact, she's already been down there. Shea, what's the hard word from Chip Ganassi Ford Racing?
Clutch problem, so you were right, John.
Well, that in fairness, that was only what I overheard the team guys saying from our colleagues at TV who had their camera right in there, which was brilliant. They were looking at the clutch cylinder. The slave cylinder is in the front and the clutch mechanism, but it's what I heard from it, and it seemed to me that they were saying that it was a mechanical issue rather than a hydraulic issue, which means basically the engine's got to come out to fix it. So that isn't happening here. No. Crew will look for Westy and Briscoe.
Absolutely right. What's interesting though is how the gaps that have evolved amongst the leaders now. I mean, after that round of pit stops, the 911 car went from 5th position to 1st, primarily as a result of the fact, I mean, really a couple of good laps while everybody else was in the pit lane by Patrick Pilet. Then Nick Tandy, a really good outlap. The first two seemed to be actually just pulled away a little bit from Jesse Krohn the last couple of laps. It was 1.5 seconds, now up to 2.5 seconds. Joey Hand, who'd been within a second or so of the 911 Porsche before the round of pit stops, came in only 1 lap before the 911 car. He's now a full, basically 10 seconds. Dirk Müller has taken over the 66 car. He's basically 10 seconds behind the Porsche. So the Porsche made a huge gain on everybody else during it round the pit stops. Number 3 Corvette. Yeah, that also fell
stayed out the
behind.
longest, of course, didn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, that and the Corvette
but
stayed out the longest.
Number 3 and number 66, those 3 cars, the 3, 911 and 66, have been basically nose to tail. The 3 and the 66 came in on the same lap. They have switched positions, and there's 4 seconds now of an advantage for the Ford over the Chevrolet. The 911 came in 1 lap later, but he's is a full 10 seconds down the road. Very curious, that.
Yeah, very good. Well, whatever they did right.
Yeah.
Great stuff from the number 911 crew and Nick Tandy. You cannot give Nick Tandy any kind of invitation and advantage, and he'll make the most of this, having taken over the car from Patrick Pilet. Screams down the front straight here. Tandy, who has been very gracious this year. They haven't had great luck either. They've had a fast car at times. Both of those Porsches have been, but it hasn't really translated into results. They won Sebring 12 hours and the Nürburgring 24, so those 2 big races in the pocket. 218 points, Patrick Pilet and Nick Tandy, 8th position against 241 from Westbrook and Briscoe. Now, I think you can pencil in 8th position points for Westy and Briscoe, Jeremy, this weekend. So that potentially is a 12-point swing.
Yeah, it's going to put him a long way back. This is the best battle on the racetrack, though, right now. Catherine Legg is running currently in the 4th position in GT Daytona. We're looking at the championship leader. That is Brian Sellers, who's taken over from Madison Snow. Whoops, who's in the 911 car off the road. He's pulling off the road.
That's the leader, Nick Tandy. He hasn't gone. He's on fire. He's on fire. There's fire from the back of this car. We saw this at Silverstone a couple of years ago in the WEC. And Nick Tandy is out and going away. And this is extraordinary drama. The leader of the race. Turn number 11. Full course caution. Tandy out of the car, looking back ruefully at the blacked out rear windscreen of the mid-engine Porsche 911 RSR. We've seen this happen before. He's just gone past our commentary point, heading up through the S's. It's all fine, hitting the curbs, but nothing awry there. And the car starts to slow down at turn number 8, and all of a sudden he's off the road. And he's realised there's something wrong, and he's out of the car, and Nick Tandy shrugs and hangs his head. The red, white and black helmet of Nick Tandy as he takes off his right glove, and over the Armco barrier he's sitting there watching the car. Now the good news is that he did have a chance to pull the fire extinguisher. The inside of the car has filled up with smoke, and there was smoke from the back of the car, but that to me, Jeremy, looks like a catastrophic failure behind Nick Tandy, and right behind Nick Tandy now, of course, is that flat 6 engine.
Utter dejection there from Nick Tandy. Absolutely, he can't. He can hardly pull himself together, because he was out in front here. They made a fabulous pit stop. They got the strategy was absolutely perfect. Patrick Pilet done a brilliant job of obviously saving a bit of fuel in that first stint, and Nick was beginning to edge clear, perhaps, of the pursuers. He was in a great position, and just to have it all ended like that, it's just gut-wrenching. It's been a disappointing year for Porsche. Not a lot of luck. A few little things have not gone their way, but this is the big thing that's not gone their way, unfortunately.
A couple of ironies here for Nick Tandy. He'll get the lift back in the Porsche, but not his, in the Cayenne GTS safety car. And the second thing is, it will help the sister car, the 912. That'll be right on the back. No, I say that.
Well, it's going to close that right up.
Yes, it's not. It's still on the lead lap, so that's good news. It also helps Jan Magnussen and Dirk Müller close onto the back of Jesse Krohn, and the black 24 BMW leads again. Shea Adam has had a word with the Porsche GT team down on pit roads.
It was an engine issue, so yeah, that's day done.
It doesn't matter really which manufacturer you follow. It's not how you want to see people's days end, is it?
No.
And I'll tell you now, even their competitors will say, we wish we would have been racing them rather than that happened.
Sure, because the cars have been super reliable this season as a general rule.
Pits are open for GT Le Mans cars. And what they're doing at the moment, Jeremy, is just having a look on the track to see if the engine dropped any oil. I think Tandy felt something and got off the road as quickly as possible. There's the tiniest bit of a dark mark going towards the inside curb at turn number 8, but that's not where you want to have oil. As IMSA official at the moment just rubbing his foot there to see if it's bad enough to need oil dry, and I'm not sure it is, to be honest. Yeah, that's going to be fine, I think so. So let's see if there's any takers. Jesse Krohn was in 10 laps ago. Question for me now, Jeremy. Oh no, they can't go to the end from here.
No.
However, just like at Bristol last night, you've got to think to yourself, and if we go to our Porsche keys to the race, react quickly for your tactics and pit stops. New tyres when they're all bunched together. Yeah, you don't want to be caught on even 10-lap old rubber now against somebody else's brand new rubber. Reckon they'll all come in, Jeremy?
The GTLM cars?
Yes.
No, I don't. I don't think they will.
Shea Adam.
Will they? Wait a minute.
They've been out for about 10 laps-ish. Shea Adam, what do you reckon? Who's coming in?
3 and 4 Corvette, both up on the wall, both of those crews. 66 Ford up on the wall, 912 up on the wall, as is 25 BMW, but the 24, the black one, stays out.
That's the leader. That's the leader.
So the leader stays out. Everybody else behind will have fresh Michelins. It was 10 sets allotted for this weekend. Now the question's going to be, the 66 was the first car into the pit lane. Who is the first car out? The 25 BMW not taking new tires.
Really?
The 3 Corvette not taking new tires. The 4 Corvette not taking new tires. But the 66 Ford is the 912 Porsche also not doing new tires. 912 rolls from its box. It is second off the pit lane to the number 3 Corvette. So it is Jan Magnussen who leads it off. Then we have Lawrence Vantor, the number 912, the 66 of Dirk Mueller, the 4 of Oliver Gavin, and then the 25 of Alexander Sims.
And of course, that is second down to 6th position that Shea's just said there, because the GTD cars will get moved out of the way if they don't come in. Bill Oberlin leading at GT Daytona, and his lead has disappeared. Ben Keating now is in 2nd position, and they are line astern. Then it's Christina Nielsen in GT Daytona, the 58 Porsche in 3rd. Then it's Catherine Legg. Then it's Dominic Baumann for Lexus. Then it's Brian Sellers. And all of those cars are line astern, with Andy Lally, the next car up. In fact, the top 8 are all GTD. All the top 8 GTD cars are sitting right behind each other on the lead lap.
Yeah.
So if they decide to come in, it will be a battle of the pit crews.
Yes, that's right. Before that was Bill Oberlin was pulling away.
Yes, he was.
From number 33 car Ben Keating, who was also pulling away from Christina Nielsen. And then there was a bit of a gap back to Catherine Legg, and she had a trainer car. She had number 14, 48 and 44 all closed up right behind her. That was a really good battle that was developing. So this has enabled Gunnar Jeanette to haul up onto that group for when we get ready for the restart.
Massive development in the championship here. Shea Adam.
That's the sound of a Ford GT, and it is not the 66, it's the 67.
Wow.
As the crew, with a phenomenal effort, riding on the golf cart. They look a bit tired and haggard, having worked in this very, very warm Virginia sun. They got their car back out on track, and of course now, if they can make up a few laps, they can jump up to 7th in points for the weekend. 10
laps they have to make up to relegate the number 911. Well, I was, hand up, I was too early, counting that one out. And the Chip Ganassi team have worked miracles. Who knows if that car will get to the finish? Have they just jerry-rigged it to get it the 10 laps?
Yeah, that's the thing. If you get 10 laps, it's one championship point, and it's as close as it is. Yeah. Every point counts.
Absolutely, absolutely, Jeremy. It doesn't matter how they get those 10 laps, but if they get 10 laps, they will pass the 911 on the scoring.
Oops.
And the twin exhausts out of the back of the 911 still spewing white smoke. And that's not the election of a new pontiff. That's more bad news for Porsche, and particularly for Tandy Impile, whose season has been character building and frustrating to say the very least, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Right, GTD, Shea Adam, who have you got coming along? Here's a Continental Tire pit lane update.
I'll tell you who stayed out, because that's going to be a lot shorter. The 93 Acura, the 15 Lexus, and the 44 Audi. Everybody else is on the pit lane. Bill Oberlin has finally been extracted from the 96 Turner Motorsports BMW. He is handing over the reins to the more than capable Robbie Foley in the number 96. We have the number 14 Lexus. There is no driver change there. They're just doing fuel only. Same fuel only for the 63 Scuderia Corse Ferrari. Fuel only for Ben Keating in the 33 Riley Technology Mercedes. For the number 48 and 86, those two cars, the Lamborghini and the Acura, fighting it out in the championship. Fuel and tires for both machines. It was side by side with the two white GTD cars, the Ferrari and the Mercedes, as they exited the pit lane. Thankfully, Bo Barfield went over exactly this situation in the drivers' meeting this morning, and it was Ben Keating who gave way. So Cooper McNeil was the first car, Gunnar Jeanette was the first car off of the pit lane. The white Ferrari beat the white Mercedes.
And that
So
will put him into second position behind Andy Lally, who stayed out in the Magnus Racing 44, the dark grey Audi.
Right, the Ferrari went from last to first of the cars that pitted.
Yes,
that's
correct.
That's very interesting indeed.
Lawson Aschenbach and David Ennemeyer Hansen stayed out, I think hoping to get their lap back, didn't they?
Yeah,
that's what they'll do. But with Andy Lally staying out, then they're not going to do that.
I don't know where they were. We don't have a view here to see where those two were in relation to Andy Lally.
They're ahead of him. I can see them on the timing screen.
Yes.
So they will be allowed.
Yes.
Well, if there's a reset of the field and a wave by, final wave by now, so they'll get that.
Yeah, there will be, yes. So
right, so that made sense. Shea Adam, was that a full fuel fill for the 63 WeatherTech Ferrari?
Nope, it was strategic. They gave him a short fill to get him out ahead of everybody else.
Yeah, I think that's smart. That's very smart. The drivers, Andy Lally and the 44 Magnus team, once again, John Potter doing his job early on, staying on the lead lap, staying in contention, get Lally in. Lally, the quicker of those two drivers, and now he has got to take that car at the end in the next hour and 19 minutes. Gunnar Jeanette ahead of drivers who he should be quicker than, which should be able to get a bit of a run on them. But all of those cars, Jeremy, have still got to make one more stop.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's got to make one more stop. But the Ferrari has not been. It's actually been at the back of the pack for pretty much all weekend long. So this is going to give Andy Lally an opportunity perhaps to pull away here from the whole field. And again, that track position is important. Gunnar Jeanette has the track position on the rest of the field, and he's got a couple of AM drivers behind him, Ben Keating and Christina Nielsen. Then Dominic Baumann, the championship leader Brian Sellers, who's got ahead of Catherine Legg during that round of pit stops. So Catherine's the loser there, but the biggest loser, of course, is number 96 BMW. That went from first in class to last. We've had a complete switch around there. What was last is now first. Gunnar Jeanette in the WeatherTech Ferrari, and what was first, the Turner Motorsport BMW, is now last of those cars on the lead lap.
Yeah, who pitted, yeah. Let's give you the Cadillac race update then and put that all in perspective. In GT Le Mans, it's the BMW, the black BMW number 24, Jesse Krohn, behind the wheel of that car, leads from Jan Magnussen, newly installed into the number 3 Chevy Corvette. Jan Magnussen in second place, looking for 3 in a row here. You can almost play the Jaws music right now. Are you just getting that feeling? Third position, Lawrence Vantour. A very fired up Lawrence Vantour this weekend has taken over from Earl Bamber in the Porsche. 3 different manufacturers in the top 3, 4 different manufacturers in the top 4, with Dirk Muller, who had a little bit of a whoopsie himself earlier in the weekend, and he will be looking for redemption and to uphold the championship challenge of the number 66 car, with the 67 car having gone behind the wall, lost a good 10-12 laps, but now back out on the track and looking for championship points, but still sitting in 8th position at the moment. In GT Daytona, Andy Lally stayed out for the Magnus Audi, leading from Gunnar Jeanette, who will be second in the WeatherTech GT Daytona 63 Ferrari, from Ben Keating, the white and green 33 Mercedes, and then Christina Nielsen in the 58. That's the Porsche. Dominic Baumann for Lexus and Brian Sellers ahead now of Catherine Legg. The 48 and 86 are battling for the championship in GT Daytona. That's your Cadillac race update with an hour and 16 minutes to go.
Yeah, and lights out on the safety car, so I think it's going to be pulling in this time.
I was going to sit down there. I was going to sit down a moment or two ago. I was going to sit down. Then Nick Tandy's engine gives up. Everything changes on the pit lane. Really, no point in even getting close to having a relax here with an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 16 minutes to go. If I even think about sitting down, something seems to happen. Beautiful day at VIR, 89.9 FM around the circuit. Sirius 138 XM202, and of course around the world on the IMSA app with IMSA TV synced to IMSA Radio on RS2. You can download the RSL player widget from radiolemans.com. Just basically click on that, right click on it and save it on your home page of your smart device. Jesse Krohn weaving left and right, trying to clean off the surface of those Michelin pilots at each corner of the BMW. Alexander Sims has had some look here as well. Remember, he was off the circuit, damaged car, drive through for incident responsibility, and now he's only 4 cars away from the lead as we start to build up the speed. Krohn getting down onto the power, coming down the hill. He let the safety car, the GTR Nissan at VIR, get away from him. And now they're underway. Gunnar Jeanette just dropped off the back a tiny bit of Andy Lally there.
Great start by Krohn.
Krohn is gone.
Yeah.
Or is it Krohn is gone? I'm not sure. Down into the first corner, the Porsche looking down the inside. Lawrence Van Tour on Kevin Magnussen. BMW and Ford going together, neither of them taking what might be considered the traditional line through turn 1. That's Lawrence Van Tour and Dirk Muller duking it out as well. Krohn, what a great restart in that black BMW. And Van Tour right up the tailpipes of the Corvette of Jan Magnussen. This is brilliant, isn't it, Jeremy?
It is great. And the other big gainer, of course, there is Lawrence Van Tour, because remember, he was involved in that incident on the very first lap. Was almost a lap down to the entire field. He's now in 3rd place.
Penalty for the number 15 Lexus of David Hennemeyer Hansen, and I think this goes back all the way to when he was hit by the 25 of Alexander Sims. Unsafe re-entry to the pit.
Yeah.
Drive-through. I see that. They're told not to do it. I see that. I think David will be on Twitter tonight talking about that.
He won't be happy. He won't be happy, but it was. I mean, he almost hit the number 80. I think it was the 86
93
car.
it was,
93
actually.
Was it? Yeah, it was one of the Acuras. I mean,
it was Justin Marks in the 93.
Yeah, it was a really scary moment.
So David is at the back of the GTD field anyway, so he'll lose a bit of real estate, but only one position to Lawson Aschenbach.
And he is back on the lead lap, so shouldn't lose that.
Yeah. You know what?
Right.
I think that's really interesting that race control have waited until now to assess that penalty. As much as to say, we're not very happy that you did that, David, but we're not going to give you it until it's not going to completely ruin your race.
Right.
Because you don't want him tooling around with a broken car, which he didn't know whether he had or not at that point. And the irony was, of course, that he came through the pit lane and his tyre punctured as he drove back out again.
So various changes.
And he's been
here.
in and out, by the way, already. Hennemeyer Hansen's been in and out. So he's dropped down through the field. At the front of the field, Jesse Krohn by 0.6 of a second from Magnussen. Meantime, Dominic Baumann has Christina Nielsen in his sights. And behind Dominic in the blue Lexus, Dominic is the red, silver and black, that distinctive shape of the Lamborghini Huracan and championship leading Paul Miller racing car of Brian Sellers, as we can have a word with Bill Oberlin in this Continental Tire pit lane update from Shea Adam.
Bill Oberlin sitting up here in a nice, cool Pratt perch watching. You were the least happy person in the world to see that caution come out, though. A 19-second lead just disappeared. Does Robbie have it in the car, though, to be able to take that Turner Motorsport BMW back to the front?
You know, the Turner guys have made an amazing BMW M6 here this weekend. It's performed flawlessly every practice, been towards the top of the timesheet. It's great. Robbie's amazing as a young driver, but that's a tall order. You know, it's very difficult to pass here. Look at the driver lineup that's in all these other cars. Everybody's great. We have to see what happens. I think we're the only ones that took tires in that last net, so maybe somebody else's tires will go off and we can start picking them off one by one. Long ways to the end, but it's a shame because last year I had a 20-something second lead in the GTLM class, and we had a left front tire fail, and that put us back. And here we are with the almost 20-second lead again. And anyways, all you can do is say, you know, you did the best you can, and we're gonna fight as hard as we can to the end.
Well, we missed you at Road America. I'm surprised to see they let you climb a ladder to come up here, but in all seriousness, you okay?
I am okay. That was weird. I was up on a very tall ladder putting my fourth ceiling fan in, and like an idiot, I fell off. I guess I'm getting uncoordinated as I get a little bit older, and I landed right on my kidney from 10 or 12 feet up, straight on a box. And I thought, oh, this is it. This is how I'm going to die here all alone in my house. And no, survived. Missed a week. That's the first week I've missed in racing since like 2001. You know, so imagine a lot of races, and but I'm glad to be back in this car. It's so fun.
Good way to celebrate coming back is to get a bit of champagne at the end of a really hot day. Hopefully you can get to the podium.
We'll do everything we can. Trust me, these guys immediately are changing up the strategy. You got Don Salama, all the guys here. They give it everything every single weekend. It's the hardest working bunch of guys on the pit crew, on the pit stand here, this place.
Do you know what? In or out of the car, he's absolutely brilliant. Bill Oberlin never gives less than 100%. Brilliant stuff from Bill Oberlin, and great to have him back. That sounded like a very nasty incident back at home a few weeks ago, and we're delighted to have him back here. One of the first people that I met and talked to when I came over here in the late 1990s, end of 1998, beginning of 1999. Bill and his dad, who very, very keen motorsport photographer, very good motorsport photographer as well. And I remember chatting with Bill then and thinking what a cracking guy he was. Little did we know that we'd be both in the paddocks some 18, 19 years later. Goodness me.
Yes, Alexander Sims, he made up 2 places on that restart, didn't he? Because he was 6th at the restart. He leapt past both number 66 and number 4, both cars which have fallen well back from the leaders with just 3 laps since the restart. Number 66 car, Dirk Mueller, now at the wheel, taken over from Joey Hand. He's now a full 3 seconds off the back of that pack, and Oliver Gavin in the car with which Tommy Miller was clearly struggling after the incident on the first lap. He's another almost 3 seconds behind as well. In the meantime, in GT Daytona, Andy Alali has taken advantage of that clear track, and he's pulled out already almost 7 seconds over the whole train of cars. There goes Andy coming out of Oak Tree and past the south end pit lane, and he's pulled well clear of Gunnar Jeanette, who's done a good job to hold that train of cars behind him.
4 more laps for Ryan Briscoe to get into 7th position. Not often we're talking about the 2 cars in 17th and 18th, last and one off last, but this has so many championship implications. The 67 Ford back from the dead, out from behind the wall. But Shea Adam, as it's been going past you, I can hear it on your pit mic. It doesn't sound like it's running correctly.
No, it doesn't. The last time it came through, it sounded like it was maybe stuck in a gear and very reluctant to change. So maybe they didn't even change the clutch. Maybe they just sort of jerry-rigged it up so that it would be acceptable to run at least till the end of the race.
Yeah, I don't even think they need to get to the end of the race, Jeremy. They want 3 more laps and then they'll park it.
Absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, there's no way you can change a clutch in these cars in 20 minutes or whatever it was. No, they just want to get it out there, turn a few laps, as you say, try and get ahead of the 911 car, and then it'll be back in the pits and parked.
It sounded to me from what the conversation that was being had by the mechanics, it wasn't as if the clutch was slipping, that it wasn't engaging at all. And if a clutch is slipping, you can try the old fizzy drink trick. But if it's not engaging at all, then you either have to just drive without it, which is it's very, very difficult. Oh, and I've just heard a car go past Shea Adam. Was that the Ford again?
Yep, it's a 67. It's come in. It stopped in the pit box. They're taking the engine cover off. They're going to have a look at the car, and they've got their air hose out to try and cool it down a bit.
Shea, this is drama about them getting 4 more laps and finishing, you know, halfway, well, right at the back of the field or one off back of the field. And the drama, they need 4 more laps.
But they've got more than an hour to get it.
Yeah.
True.
3 more they'll need it. It'll be 37 completed when they go past the start finish line, which I don't think they're quite done yet.
Okay. I'm not sure where their pit stall is actually, so yes, you may be right.
It's quite far down there, but I don't think it's quite at the flag stand.
Well, we'll keep an eye on that. This could be absolutely crucial when we come to the... We might at Petit Le Mans in October be saying, well, you know, if they'd been able to get those 3 extra laps and the extra points that would have got them, then they would have been champions. The air hose is being thrown in again. Shea Adam is watching it. The car's rolling, Shea.
It was. It fired up. They're actually helped a bit because their pit box is on a downhill slant, so they can bump start it effectively if that's what they need to do. But they cooled it off for about 15 seconds, then put the engine cover back on, sent him back out. They are desperate to try and get those 3 laps. And I don't think it'll be a situation where we're saying if they could only get those 3 more laps, because Richard Westbrook, I believe, has been runner-up in an IMSA championship 5 times, so I think he would jump off a cliff if it was 6.
Yeah. Yes, 5 times the bridesmaid, possibly not the greatest stat for Westy.
You knew.
Jesse Krohn doing a great job at the front of the field ahead of Jan Magnussen in the bright yellow number 3 Corvette, who's rumbling down the back straight at the moment. He can see the black BMW. It's about 1.5 seconds ahead of him as they go through into the braking area at the top of the roller coaster, and that's just stabilised again. And once again, Jeremy, the 2 leading cars, and it doesn't matter what the cars are, who's in which position or which manufacturers we're talking about. 1:43.613 for the leader, 43.649 for second place, and the best laps of all the cars as well. 42.8, 42.7, 42.6, 42.7, 42.7, 44 for the number 4 Chevy Corvette. That's the only car that is off the pace, and it was off the pace last lap as well with a 45.0 and a 45.4 for Ollie Gavin. I don't think that number 4 Chevy Corvette is altogether healthy either.
No, definitely not.
Gone very quiet here at the moment, as well as no cars go past us.
Dirk Mueller has got with the program now. He's closing the gap a little bit to those cars ahead of him. It was over 3 seconds, now a little bit less than 2. So he's closing in on the battle between Lawrence Vantor and Alexander Sims, who's all over the back of the Porsche trying to find a way past. Meanwhile, there is number 4 car, 24 car in the lead of this race. Jesse Krohn made a brilliant restart to leap away from the field, and he's trying to do the best he can to extend that advantage, or at least hope. The main thing is just to hold on to it. That's all he wants to do. But this battle back in GTD is fantastic. It is. And Lawson Aschenbach, by the way, he rejoined. He'd got the wave around, made his pit stop, rejoined the race. He was about 10 or 12 seconds behind everybody at the restart, but he's now caught up this train of cars, which is being, well, Gunnar Jeanette, he's actually edged out a little bit now over Ben Keating, Christina Nielsen, Dominic Baumann, Brian Sellers, Robbie Foley and Catherine Legg, and Lawson Aschenbach hanging on to that whole group.
That's been a great drive by Lawson Aschenbach. That's number 93 Acura. That's the red Acura, the team car to the grey of Catherine Legg, which actually is 1 place ahead of it. That car just hasn't been quite right all weekend, and neither of its drivers have been desperately happy with what's been going on. They've thrown a bit of setup at it, they've changed 1 or 2 things, but for some reason it's just not happening for them. Meantime, at the front of the field, 3rd place now beginning to be disputed. Not so very long ago, Lawrence Vantor was right under the rear wing of Jan Magnussen. He's dropped 3 seconds away from that, and that means he's under pressure now from Alexander Sims, who is looking for a bit of redemption after a mistake earlier on.
And that number 912 car, that's the car that set the fastest lap of the race, remember, in the early stages after that problem on the first lap for Earl Bamber.
New set of tyres, wasn't it, in clear air?
Yep, it was on, it was on lap 9, which is about when everybody else was turning their quick laps. But right at the moment, Larry is struggling. Oh, there's a good bit of jockeying around there in that pack. Brian Sellers looked to try and make a move on Dominic Baumann. That wasn't going to happen. And at the same time, he was trying to make a pass, or look as if he was trying to make a pass on Christina Nielsen.
Well, wherever you are on the track, the action is coming up through the S's at the moment. If you're joining us, there's an hour to go and a 7-car GT Daytona train in behind the Porsche of Christina Nielsen. 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th. You'd think the race had just started. In fact, you'd think it was...
got past Gunnar Jeanette. How did he do that? Must have been... I don't know what happened on the last lap, but all of a sudden, the number 33 car of Ben Keating has got past, hasn't he?
Yeah, Keating has got past Gunnar Jeanette, and Christina Nielsen's got past Gunnar Jeanette as well.
Oh, has she now?
Yes, she has.
So she has.
Yeah, barely a second away from Pat Long's times earlier on. Here comes Brian Sellers round the outside, championship leader on the 86 BMW.
No, that's the other way around. That's a BMW making a pass on Brian Sellers.
Yes, it was.
In actual fact.
And Brian Sellers actually thinking championship right there, wasn't he?
Yes.
You know what? If that had been the last lap of the race for first position, you might have toughed it out. But he just backed out of that. Good spot, Jeremy.
Brilliant move by Robbie Foley.
Yes,
there.
it was.
We talked about it earlier on. I mean, he's been driving beautifully this weekend. Really now is totally in tune with that car.
We saw Brian Sellers at Watkins Glen side by side on the outside, coming down through turn 6 after the short shoot, going round the outside of Catherine Legg and doing exactly the same things then. Whoa, I don't need to be here. I'm going to back out of this one. Being on the outside, the guy on the inside should give you enough room. And if they don't, they'll probably get a penalty. But that doesn't help you if you're in the barriers. So Brian Sellers using his racer's brain there. What was it the Plongy said about him? Small, aggressive and blindingly fast. The Velociraptor of the pit. I love that. We've got to see that on the car, surely. Absolutely got to happen, that. Andy Lally, by the way, is cleared off. He's lit the afterburners, military settings, and the 44 Magnus Audi is now 13 seconds up the road, and he's controlling things now.
And all of the GTD cars have to make one more pit stop. He's got, hopefully he's got enough to get him to the end with that full course caution. He, of course, that was the first car to come onto pit lane.
Shea Adam has just had a Ford GT past her.
And here's the irony. In order to get the lap that they needed, he needed to drive straight through the pit lane and cross the start-finish line, which is after pit out, so it will have to lip around one more time. They thought they were done at that lap, and then realized, guys,
they don't get credit.
Cross start-finish.
No, they don't get credit until they leave the pit lane, so they will have to do another lap. Let's see what happens actually then when that car comes in. I think they might have to do another one after that. Brian Sellers getting shuffled back again. Oh, there's damage to the right front. Damage to the right front. There's been contact there. It was Catherine Legg and Lawson Aschenbach who went through. And the two Acuras, there's been contact. Now, I took my eye off what was going on the track to check the Ford situation there. And with 57 minutes to go, that's big drama for the championship leader in GTD. Not the first time I've said that this weekend. A flapping piece of bodywork just over the top of the right front Continental tyre. Now, what do? I reckon you bring that car in. You're the championship leader. You bring that car in and make sure nothing's rubbing. It's the wheel arch liner. It's rubbing. And it was the 86 car, Catherine Legg, that made contact with the 48, and it's under review. I think you've got to bring that car in, Jeremy. You can't risk that puncturing the tyre and sending the car off the track.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they're now at the back of the pack.
Ford 66 is in. We'll check that in a moment. Coming down across the start-finish line.
Well, okay.
Down in towards turn 1. Catherine Legg down the inside.
Oh, she's right there.
She is right there. Bump and run. And nice little run from Lawson Aschenbach. That was a cheeky little Xfinity move there, but she was right along the onside.
Was that all the damage caused by that one impact there?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, side-by-side contact.
Yeah, I mean, she was right there alongside him from what we saw then. I think there must have been something before that.
No, absolutely not.
All right.
Brian Sellers into the pit lane.
The other significant move is number 25 BMW has got past Lawrence Van Toor. So Alexander Sims now up into third position. So it's BMW's first and third.
Well, the guys at Paul Miller Racing must have been listening. They're taking no chances, Shea Adam, and the GTD leading car is in the pit lane for remedial work.
They're putting fuel and scrubbed Continental tires onto this 48 Paul Miller Racing Lamborghini. The 96 Turner BMW has also come in for a splash. They might be able to go from here. The right-hand mirror is missing on the Lamborghini as well. The fueling is done, and they send Brian Sellers back out. Also of note, the 58 Wright Motorsport Porsche has been in. They did a driver change, so it's Pat Long back in that car, and that will be going to the end as well. We are within the window, and we are starting to get a lot of pit callers. The leader is in. There will be no further action between the 86 and the 48. So the Acura and the Lamborghini, NFA from Race Control. The BMW is in. They are doing 4 tires and fuel, as well as a driver change. John Edwards back in. Jesse Krohn is out on the number 24 BMW. For the number 912 Porsche, they are also doing fuel and tires. It's still going to be Larry in the car to the end of the race. So Mr. Vanshore getting a more opportunity to drive around Virginia International Raceway, a track that he chose to come to this year. And the 912 beats out the 24 easily. That's a huge advantage for the Porsche off of the pit stops. A great stop, and we're expecting the Corvette to come in this time by.
Well, I think that's a great call by Paul Miller Racing. Twofold. One, you get rid of the potential for damage on the right front of that car and a potential tyre problem. Second, it hasn't actually cost them anything, Jeremy, because they've just made their last pit stop first.
Correct. Yeah,
so that was
that everybody now is just making their pit stops at the right time. But it did has to cost them quite a bit of ground before that, of course, before limping that car around. Here's a
67, by the way, has gone through and into 7th position in GT Le Mans, has cleared Nick Tandy's stricken car, the 911, which is not going any further. And immediately that's happened, Ryan Briscoe's brought the 67 in along pit lane and gone straight behind the wall. So exactly as we thought from Chip Ganassi Ford Racing, and smart racer's brain there, Shea Adam, from everybody concerned.
And also of note, when the 66 came in, they only did the 2 tires, and we are expecting both of the Corvettes to come in line astern. We had Jerome Bleekemolen reinstalled into the 33 Mercedes with fuel and tires, as well as Dominic Baumann back into the 14 Lexus. But beating both of those cars out was the car that came in before any other GTD car with a suspected engine issue. That's the 93 MSR Acura. They leave ahead of 2 championship rivals.
Okay, thank you very much, Adam, for that Continental Tire pit lane report. 53 minutes to go now, and here's our Cadillac race update. Jan Magnussen leads for Chevy Corvette, but has still to do his last pit stop. Last twice we've been here, Jan Magnussen and Antonio Garcia have stood on the top step of the podium. In 2nd position, Alexander Sims is 2 seconds further back, then a big gap back, 43 seconds back to Dirk Muller in the 66 Ford in 3rd position. But they've made their pit stop, remember. Van Toor made his pit stop as well. The 86 has just come in. That's Catherine Legg. Should be the left-hand side, furthest away from you, Shea, that may have damage.
The left front?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, there is a little bit of damage. Nothing too severe, nothing that would interrupt the handling of the car. The intake that goes by the left rear wheel and into the left rear brake has a bit of damage on it. There's actually a hole that's been punched in the carbon fiber. Maybe that's where the wing mirror went. I bet if you dig far enough back in there, you find something shiny and reflective off the Lamborghini. But a full service for the number 86, Catherine Legg, staying in the car to the end of the race, so they are not putting back Super Mario, and the car has been sent. We wait now as the number 3 Chevy Corvette comes in from the lead of the race. For this car, it will be fuel and tires, and it might just be the King of Spain getting back behind the wheel.
And the Magnus Racing team also made a pit stop there. They didn't want to make. They wanted to make sure they didn't get caught out by staying out. They could stay out longer, but they wanted to make sure to cover off for the eventuality of a potential safety car to get their stop made. But it must have been a long stop, because all of a sudden there's a whole train of cars right behind Andy Lally, and he came in with a huge lead. He came in with a 15-second lead over everybody else, and that is absolutely gone. In fact, did a number 93 car get ahead of all of them? To wait and see until they come around. Unfortunately, can't see the racetrack in here. It's rather frustrating, but it's game on. It would appear in GT Daytona when it had appeared that Andy Lally had a pretty sizable lead.
Let's go back down to Shea Adam for more from the GT Daytona category, where Gunnar Jeanette's in the pit lane for this Continental Tire update.
You were just asking about him, Jeremy, and he has come into the pit lane. It is fuel and 4 new Continental tires for the Ferrari, as they are going to do a full fuel this time. They had 2 liters taken away from their allowance from last race at Road America to now, but it doesn't seem to be making too much of a difference for the Ferrari. They have lowered the car off the air jacks, having completed the tire change, just waiting on the fuel. Now the lollipop goes up, and Gunnar Jeanette is cleared for takeoff.
Thank you, Shea Adam, and that Continental Tire pit lane update. I'll wait a couple of minutes actually before I do the update. The rest of I'll run down what's happening at the moment. Lawson Aschenbach leads for Acura in GT Daytona, but owes us a final pit stop, I think. Yes, he does. So Andy Lally will cycle back to the lead in the 44 Audi. That should be what happens.
I think so. We're at number 93.
No, the 93's been in. Yes, it was in on 56. How did they manage that?
Yeah.
Excellent stuff. So
well, because they also made a splash when they got the wave around. That's why.
Yes, so they were stationary shorter. Yes. Good call, Jeremy. So, Cadillac in-race update has Lawson Aschenbach leading in the 93 GT Daytona. Had a chat with him this morning, eating at Marion's, which is always a good sign for any superstitious drivers. Gunnar Jeanette has rejoined and will drop down. So Andy Lally will be second, I reckon, in the 44 Audi. Then, right behind him, Jerome Blakemolen in the Mercedes number 33. Then Robbie Foley in the BMW 96. Then Dominic Baumann. Then Catherine Legg in the Lexus and the Acura. Then Pat Long in the 58 Porsche. Then Brian Sellers, championship leader, down in 9th, but only half a second behind Plongy. At the front of the field, Alexander Sims with a huge lead in the 25 BMW.
Because he's
45
the only one who hasn't
seconds.
yet stopped.
He hasn't yet made his final stop.
But Jan Magnussen is ahead of Dirk Mueller.
Correct.
And a number 912 car and a number 24. Those 4 cars are absolutely nose to tail, and that's been a big shuffle around since before they made their pit stop.
Do we think that Mueller can go from lap 56 3 laps ago? So what's that, 48, 50, 55 minutes? Do we think the GT Le Mans cars can do 55 minutes?
Yes.
Right.
I mean, he was in 1 lap before number 24, number 912.
But Magnussen was 3 after him.
He did, indeed.
So he just came in last time around. And Alexander Sims here, he was last in at the end of lap number 42, which is 18 laps ago. So he's probably got another 12 or 13 laps to go at the very least, which is going to mean he needs barely a splash of fuel. And if this goes green all the way through, he might be able to get that turned around. It's 21 seconds to run down the pit lane. He's got 44 seconds on the field. Now, how soon before he comes in for his final pit stop? He doesn't want any kind of safety car. He did a 45.9 last time around. He's on older tyres, 44.1 from Jan Magnussen. I think it might be time to come in. They might be losing the opportunity to turn him around and get him out.
Well, the thing about that is, if there's a full course caution, he'll go to the whole back of the pack.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas now, has he got enough time? I mean, he's turning slower lap times than the car behind.
You've got to get him
losing ground. Yeah,
I think you've got to get him in. Now, in fairness, he's just gone through a line of GT Daytonas. which the other guys will have to do. Now it's down to 43.5 seconds. Heck of a battle going on between Magnussen, Müller, Van Turk and Krohn, by the way.
Right.
That might be the saving grace for the BMW of Alexander Sims, that they start tripping over each other and slowing each other down. What a run and what strategy for MSR and the Acura team with the number 93 car, as you're listening to live coverage of the Michelin GT Challenge at VIR for the WeatherTech Championship.
This is fascinating, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah, Lawson Eichenbach, that was a great pit stop, great strategy there by the Meyer Shank Racing team. They got an Acura out in the lead of the race, and he's actually extended his lead a little bit over the last couple of laps over Andy Lally, who's got his mirrors full of Blekemolen and Baumann, who just got past Robbie Foley, by the way. Lexus ahead of BMW on that last lap. Catherine Legg is now tacked onto the tail end of the lead of that leading bunch as well. Well, the second place bunch.
This is IMSA Radio and IMSA TV together, side by side action going through out of turn 2 into turn 3 for the 24 Jesse Krohn BMW, and Lawrence Van Toor just ahead of him is in 4th position. Jesse Krohn in the BMW in 5th. Just ahead of them, Dirk Muller about a second further up through the S's, and Jan Magnussen's 3/4 of a second there. The 3 Corvettes, the 66 Ford, the 912 Porsche and the 24 BMW separated by under 2 seconds. Those 4 cars, not 2 seconds between each of them, 2 seconds between the 1st and the 4th of them.
Whoops.
Absolutely unbelievable stuff. Heading into Oak Tree then. And Lawrence Van Toor loving this track, loving the challenge that the American circuits pose to the European driver. Talking to me down at Leith Porsche at Carey on Thursday night, telling the fans there he chose to be in this championship. He's under pressure now. He wanted to come to the States and race the full year in the IMSA WeatherTech Championship because he wanted the challenge of the American circuits. He wanted the challenge of tracks where if you put a wheel off, you're going to lose time. You might spin the car, you might even hit the barriers. The wide open run-off spaces he described as like a car park, and taking the drama, the danger and the courage out of the driver's lexicon. And at the moment he's having to deal with the 24 behind him of Jesse Krohn through turn 1 again for this battling pair. 2 very different cars. Flat 6 Porsche engine moved forward a couple of years ago to exploit the aerodynamic rules that allow the bigger diffusers under the rear of the car. Little puff of smoke there from the Porsche. Now, was that just a Michelin tyre catching the bodywork? Remember, the 911 of Nick Tandy expired going up through the S's. And a little puff of smoke from the left-hand rear of the Porsche. The exhausts are right in the middle of that car. That's something to keep an eye on. The BMW behind with the engine right up front. Just wasn't it that side of the car that got a little clip earlier on? Was the right side, I think, that was clipped by the Corvette of Tom Milner earlier on. Alexander Sims leading 43.2 last time around. So once he cleared the traffic, Jeremy, he's lapping roughly the same. In fact, was a little quicker that time around than Jan Magnussen, who's yet to come across the line. So let's see what it was. It was 42 seconds, the gap between Sims and Magnussen. Round about a pit stop. It would be very, very close indeed. And Sims in clear air, going very quickly indeed through Sector 1. Indeed, his fastest Sector 1 of the race.
Yeah, he's got clear of that traffic now.
Yeah, it's
and
42 seconds again, so he's holding that.
Yep.
So at the moment, that's okay, but they're playing Russian roulette with a safety car.
Yep, they are. But Jan Magnussen, he's got the hammer down. He knows that he's got a chance of a win here, but it's going to depend on how long that pit stop is for Alexander Sims, whether Sims can maintain that advantage. There's an off there for David Heinemann-Hansen, I think, on the last lap. I wonder why he lost nearly a couple of seconds to the rest of the pack, because he'd been catching up fairly quickly, at half a second or more a lap. But he's got a lot of grass there. That's going to do that engine no good at all. This is fascinating stuff. Tommy Milner's just done his best lap of the race, curiously, number 4 car. It's a long way off the back of the pack in GTLM.
Yeah, he has been off, and he's just done the stop and restart to throw the grass out of the front of that car. So
identical lap times by the two leaders. First and second place cars. Alexander Sims has just completed one more lap than Banks at this stage, because Banks hasn't yet come across the line. He's coming down the hill to complete that, because Sims, of course, still owes us a pit stop. But 1:43.046, both of those two cars, number 25 and number 3, on their last laps. Really good stuff. Here is on board with Jan Magnussen. 45 over on that lap. He lost a couple of seconds on that lap. I'm not quite sure why. Was he passing traffic? Maybe he's didn't see any traffic. All of a sudden that gap now is 43.9 seconds, so it went out by 2 seconds, and Dirk Müller is a little bit closer behind him, and right behind Dirk Müller is the Jesse Krohn BMW, who's got past Lawrence Vantour.
Just want to put something right that we were talking about in the Michelin Countdown to Green. The Corvette in second place at the moment, and Corvette looking for their 100th win in North America. I think we might have said in the USA.
Yes, that was my thought. I thought about that as soon as I said it.
No, that's all right. They've had 107 wins, of which 8 have been at Le Mans, an extraordinary win ratio at Le Mans, by the way. Almost 50% of their trips to Le Mans has resulted in a win. North America, 8 out of 18 Le Mans trips have resulted in a win from their 107. That makes 99 which have occurred on the North American continent. That would include some in Canada at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, and I think Trois Rivières as well on that. And thanks to Stephen Gardner and a couple of other people for pointing that out.
As soon as I said it, my mind.
No, it's all right. Christina Nielsen trying to go around the outside of, Pat Long trying to go around the outside of Gunnar Jeanette there at turn 1, and Brian Sellers is in the mix there as well, as they're fighting for 7th, 8th and 9th in GT Daytona, and Pat Long wants that. Gunnar Jeanette doesn't want to give him it and swerves over in front of him. Oh, now, if the Porsche moving around earlier on was blocking, that's got to be very close to it. Jeanette was on the outside line and cut straight across in front of Pat Long there. Might get away with it because there was a left-hand corner coming, but this will be being watched very, very carefully. Plongy's got a fast car in that right motorsport machine. Brian Sellers with a watching brief in the Lamborghini. Couple of 3 car lengths behind as someone in front of them. That would be Catherine Legg, has just dropped a couple of wheels off on the grass and thrown up a huge amount of dirt. Now, the Porsche's got a run here. Let's see what Gunnar Jeanette does. Here comes Pat Long. Hasn't moved yet. Pat Long, does he dive to driver's left? Gunnar Jeanette's right over to the right-hand side. Now he comes Long down the inside, and there the Ferrari's moved over again, and now it's moved back again.
Yeah, but it's not alongside. He gets a help from behind there from Patrick Long. Long is clearly faster. They were very similar on straight line speed there, weren't they, those two cars? But when they got into the braking area, Patrick Long able to brake a little bit deeper than the Ferrari.
I love them both dearly, Jeremy, but that's not that much different from what Bamba was doing. Although, in fact, obviously Bamba's swerve resulted in contact. Meantime, at the front of the field, I'm just pointing it out for the sake of.
And I'm also going to point out that that lead in GT Daytona for Lawson Eichenbach is shrinking. It's coming down from 4.8 to 3.8 to 3.1 to 2.7. Now just over 2 seconds over Andy Lally, who is bringing Jerome Bleekemolen and Dominic Baumann with him.
And Jesse Krohn, I think, has just gone past Müller, hasn't he?
I talked about that a couple of laps ago, yes.
Right, he's just been scored ahead of him that time around. Müller down to 4th. That's just changed over on the screen. Might have been a little bit behind there.
Oh, but no, beg your pardon, yes. Krohn
up to third in the 24 car,
Yeah.
ahead of Muller in the 66 Ford, and then Van Tuis right there as well. That's another great three. There's these little clumps of cars around the circuit.
Yeah, no,
great
that
three-car battle.
That happened on this lap because just a couple laps ago that number 24 car also passed number 912. That's
Okay.
right. Beg your pardon there. So it's now first and third for BMW.
Yeah, this is their best run ever.
And meantime, Alexander Sims in the lead. He's edging away a little bit now. His last couple of laps, he's extended that lead just a little bit. And Jan Magnussen is extending his lead, or has been, over that little group behind him. But now we'll see what Jesse Krohn can do.
Extraordinarily close times, whether they're in traffic or not. These GTLMs and the GTDs. I mean, this is GT racing at its very best. GT racing at its very best at the Michelin GT Challenge. Where else in the world can you see this kind of parity and this quality of drivers lap after lap after lap? And we get to see it in sharp relief here, Jeremy, without the prototypes. Don't get me wrong, I love the prototypes, that's great, but the two races, one at Lime Rock Park and here at VIR, they just have a different character because the prototypes aren't there.
Yep.
And Pat Long's gone through. Pat Long has gone through. Exit of turn one into turn two, but good at Jeanette's having a look and disputing it down the inside. He's pushed Pat Long wide. Long, though, gets through 4 and 5, and Pat Long is going to disappear into the distance now. Had to force the issue a little bit, perhaps, there, Pat Long.
Yeah.
But he's got through. Our Porsche keys to the race. If you're going to pass, make it count. And Pat Long has done that in the Wright Motorsports number 58 car. And now Brian Sellers has the not inconsiderable task, Jeremy Shaw, of getting past Gunnar Jeanette and trying to get 7th position away from him.
Yeah, we need to switch actually now to the, or very shortly, to the lead in GT Daytona, because that gap is shrinking again, just 1.3 seconds now. Each of the last two laps, it's been more than half a second that Lally has pulled in on Lawson Aschenbach. Here is Andy Lally heading into the roller coaster, and there, right in front of him now, is the Acura of Lawson Aschenbach. Actually, he's pushing hard, but they're all pushing hard at this stage in the game. And on this particular lap, Andy's just edged out a little bit over Jerome Blekemolen. But can he make it? Catching and passing the Acura is going to be a very different story, I would suggest, because Lawson has had a bit of a disappointing year, bit of a struggle for him and Justin Marks. They've had some problems even in this race, but great strategy and great driving has got to the front. And now he's got a battle on his hands if he's going to keep it. But by the same token, Andy Lally, he wants that first win of the season. They had a disappointing beginning to the campaign as well, but had a couple of podium finishes. They had a third and a second. They'd love to make it a first.
Catherine Legg has just put in the Acura number 86 fastest lap of the race, 1:45.5, and she was the fastest GT Daytona driver that last time around as she tries to chase down Dominic Baumann, with Brian Sellers, 4 places behind her at the moment. There's an opportunity to close down that 18-point gap between herself, Madison Snow, and Brian Sellers in the 48 car. Brian Sellers got to be careful here in that Lamborghini. He's got a car, I think, that's quicker than Gunnar Jeanette, but he can't put the championship lead under threat. He's got to make sure he knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, and talking about Catherine Legg, she got past Robbie Foley, by the way, and is now pulling clear very rapidly.
Yeah, 5.5 seconds. Excellent stuff from Catherine Legg. Thoroughly enjoyed her Xfinity outing and has got another one coming up shortly.
Super consistency from Alexander Sims out in front. 43.03 each of the last 2 laps. 43.13 the lap before that, 43.08 the lap before that, and 42.8 the one before that one. But super consistency, and he's just edging out a little bit more over the Corvette. Gives him a bit more of a margin to make that pit stop.
And that's why we're standing here and sitting here, Jeremy, and not on the pit wall, because I would have had him in 15 laps ago, because I thought that they were struggling. Battle for the lead in GTD. Andy Lally round the outside, going into turn 3 on Lawson Aschenbach. Lawson's going to try and make that Acura very, very wide indeed. They touch the 2 rear ends of those cars coming together. And Aschenbach
And
somehow
now Lally
holds
is
on.
going to watch out for Joan Blekemolen because he wants through there as well.
And
right
Dominic
behind
Baumann.
them. Yes, right behind them.
Dominic Baumann
That was
right
a
there.
pretty
4 cars
stout
battling
hit.
for the lead.
It was a stout hit, wasn't it, between those 2 cars in the lead?
I'd be surprised if there wasn't a little bit of suspension damage there.
Yeah.
Maybe the bottom control arm just taking a knock there. Aschenbach is not going to give this one up easy. They have had an awful run this year in that number 93 car. Just 1 podium, and that was when they were second to their teammates at Detroit, as Shea Adam has just reminded me. In the happiest looking car from the front, the smiling face of the Acura NSX always looks like it's got a grin on its face, although it's giggling away. That was the full season car. Remember, Catherine Legge was only supposed to be doing with Alvaro Parent the longer races, but she's done so well and has been, in that respect, the senior partner as far as point scoring is concerned, with Justin Marks and Lawson Aschenbach down in 7th position in the Drivers' Championship. And they've had rotten luck this year. And Lawson Aschenbach will need to be pried out of this with a crowbar.
Yeah, absolutely right.
He's got no championship aspirations here. And in some respects,
Nor does Andy.
neither does Andy. They're just going for race wins as Andy tries to go around the outside. The Audi, the dark grey car with
Sorry,
the
Andy, that
green.
ain't going to work.
It's not going to work. And he's not even going to get enough overlap to get to the inside. Oh, he might for turn number 2 and 3, and they touch again. And Lally will go through into turn 3 and 4. But here comes Blekemolen. He's going to go from 3rd to 1st in the AMG GT3. Marvellous opportunist overtaking maneuver.
Oh, no!
Lally spun him. Lally just hit him on the right rear corner. Oh, that's going to be something to be looked at. Now, was there a tap there? That was my initial thought when I saw that. And Blekemolen rejoins behind the battle for first and for second, third and fourth in the GT Le Mans and overall. And Blekemolen has just been turned up to about 150 degrees in there. Gas mark 17. He will be steaming.
Yeah, I think it's time to bring that leading car into the pits for its final pit stop. It's getting a bit fraught there in GT Daytona. Nothing to do with GTLM for me.
Yeah, but
right now.
He's cleared that
He
big
is,
battle.
but if they keep bashing into each other, it's a full course caution.
Yeah, good.
He's going
good
to be
point.
absolutely hosed. So
Yeah, good point.
they've got to bear that in mind. Yes, he's pulling away a little bit now, but I mean, he's only edging away. It's tenths of a second. At this stage, I'm not sure those tenths of a second
It was
are really significant.
It was a good half a second last time around as those
It was that
cars are about to hit that battle with the GTD cars. So maybe they're waiting for that. 28.5 minutes to go. A brilliant opportunist manoeuvre from the 33. Oh, was there a touch? Looked like it was the lightest of touches.
Well,
and by the way, Dominic Baumann slipped through there. The Merc was on the curb. Andy's on the curb. I don't know, you know.
Can't sell for that
Can't
angle.
tell.
No.
Can't tell. Can't convict him on that.
No.
Now, let's have a look.
Here
from
we go.
The 33 car comes through. He gets through.
Gets squeezed.
All right, that's fine. That's side by side.
Then he squeezes Andy out. That's fair enough. I don't know.
Still can't see.
No, we need to see on board with
I
Lally.
don't think you can call that, Jeremy, from what we've seen. It's under
agree.
review.
I'll tell you who's right with that lot, by the way. It's Catherine Legge.
Oh, yeah.
She'd close up onto that group.
Yeah, I think from the 44 car, that does look like a little touch.
It does, doesn't it?
It's the slightest of touches, but that's all it needs there. Maybe see from the Dominic Baumann car, side by side, and then, oh yeah, that's the convicting evidence from Dominic Baumann's car, who slips through into the lead, and the Lexus then goes through. So the slightest of touches.
Jan Magnussen on that last lap.
Magnussen a 47.2. He's in amongst that GTD traffic, Jeremy. He's the first of the cars to come through, and he had to work his way through there. 27 minutes to go, and now it's a Lexus leading. Not the Lexus that qualified on pole position. He's fully half a minute further back down the road, but the top 10 GTDs, all of the GTD cars still running, and all within half a minute and on the lead GT Daytona lap. The big story so far, Nick Tandy, whilst in the lead and driving away, the 911 engine developed a problem, and he parked the car at the top of the S's. Total dejection from the man from Central England. Ryan Briscoe had problems in the 67. Before that, the championship leading Ford with a clutch problem went behind the wall. That looked like day over, but they got the car back out to do 12 more laps to get it past the Porsche and then put that car behind the wall. So 7th and 8th will be Ryan Briscoe and Nick Tandy, or should I say the 67 Ford and the 911 Porsche.
And I've just figured out why the BMW is staying out. It's because that team knew that Jan Magnussen was going to come up behind that train of GT cars.
Yes, absolutely.
So therefore they didn't want. They knew he was going to
go
get
out
held
massively.
up. Yeah.
52 seconds now. 52 seconds. And as soon as Magnussen gets past that traffic, I reckon the BMW comes in with 25 minutes to go. I think now they can get in, do a relatively leisurely stop and possibly even put a new set of Michelins on to get that car out and still out in front of Jan Magnussen. Shea Adam is down by Rahal Letterman Lanigan BMW.
They're not standing on the wall yet, John. They don't even have the number 25 lollipop in hand to dangle, but they do have 4 brand new Michelin tires resting gently on the wall. And all the crew guys are sitting on the wall as well, fully helmeted, but the goggles aren't down yet, so we're not quite yet at go time.
Okay, Shea, thank you. Thank you very much indeed. The sights and sounds of VIR, always spectacular, always beautiful, sometimes in a rather brutal way, but the race cars tearing through this beautiful countryside. There's a lovely counterpoint, isn't there, between the quiet rolling hills and the verdant scenery and these loud monsters cutting through them at 150, 160 miles an hour. And at the moment, the man at the head of the field, Alexander Sims, is controlling this race for the front. 53 seconds the lead now. One stop still for that car. Everybody else stopped a long time ago. Already getting on for, 15 laps ago. 44, Andy Lally has been convicted. And he will lose second place. Oh!
Well, I guess.
And then lead us in. Let's go to Shea Adam. This is the race right here. RLL under pressure. How will they cope with it? Shea Adam.
They have tires in hand, but the most important part of this pit stop is going to be the fuel nozzle, which goes in first. The crew members say for him to fire the car back up. They are not going to change the tires, just waiting on enough fuel to be able to send Alexander Sims to the checkered flag, which is a little bit more than they needed last time out at Road America. It was heartbreak for this team when they were short on fuel just 2 weeks ago. Now they come in from the lead of the race, and they send Alexander back out. He had the number 1 on the side of his car when he came in, and there is nobody that you can even hear in the pit lane coming down out of 17 yet. Brilliant stop by BMW.
Magnussen still behind some GTD traffic coming down through the hog pen now. He's behind Andy Lally, who I'm sure will peel off into the pit lane himself here. Andy does. Andy Lally out to second place. That promotes Cat Legg up into second place, and that has championship implications as well.
Well, there was a real battle going on there between Andy and Catherine, which was pretty interesting. Now, Catherine has got clear track. Can she catch Dominic Baumann?
1.6 seconds between them, and that would be a huge change in the championship standings. Brian Sellers at the moment in 6th position.
Yeah, it'll become 5th after Andy, I think, makes his pit stop.
No, it's already 6th. Andy's dropped down to 7th. So that's
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I see you were saying.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Andy Lally is going to be fired up. Really fired up. Now, I'll tell you what, the thing about Andy Lally is a very, very straight-up driver. And he'll have known if there was contact there, a bit like a batsman knows if he's edged it or not.
That's true, except he's been coming for a bit of criticism lately. Who was he battling with last time out? He was a battle with somebody last time and they weren't very happy with him. I forget who that was now.
Was it Patrick Lindsay? When they were back in the championship?
No, last time out. Oh, I know. Well, he had it coming together last time when he ended up crashing, didn't he?
Yeah. I'm not sure that was...
There was somebody I know wasn't happy with Andy Lally. I can't remember who it was.
Yeah, he went into the wall coming down the hill, didn't he?
On turn 6 exit.
Yeah,
that wasn't nice.
Exactly right. Got on the outside of somebody there. that then ran him wide. Let's take a Cadillac race update with 22 minutes to go. Alexander Sims has made his pit stop and will go to the end on the fuel and the Michelin tyres that he has on the 25 BMW. He's got out in the lead, and I'll give you the gap when he crosses the line next time around. Jan Magnussen has closed now. In fact, I can tell you it's 9.3 seconds, the gap between Sims and Magnussen. 25 BMW versus the number 3 Corvette, which is looking for its 3rd consecutive win. And in 3rd position, Jesse Krohn, another 2.6 seconds further back. 2 RLL BMWs in the first 3 at the moment. Then it's Dirk Muller for Ford in 4th position. The number 66 car could be a big day for them as well in the championship standings. Remember, Richard Westbrook and Ryan Briscoe will do no better than 7th position. In fact, they will get 7th position points with Nick Tandy and Patrick Pilet out as well. In GT Daytona, Dominic Baumann for Lexus leads by 6.1 seconds all of a sudden as Catherine Legg had a slow lap.
Yeah, that's right.
Lawson Aschenbach in the second of the Acuras, who had been leading, is 2.3 seconds further back after a bit of jigging and poking. Pat Long's fought his way through to 4th place in GT Daytona and is right up the tailpipe of Aschenbach through the Oak Tree turn at the far end of the track from us. Then it's Gunnar Jeanette and Brian Sellers. Sellers desperate to make up some time, but will not want to put himself and his Lamborghini in any kind of danger at all with a car that is, well, it's not in the championship hunt, but the co-driver is Cooper McNeil, and he's 4th in the championship standing. So Gunnar Jeanette will not want to give up any places either, trying to keep his co-driver in with a shout of something in the championship. That's how they stand with just under 20 minutes to go. That's your Cadillac in-race update. Live from trackside, VIR. This is IMSA Radio. Enough going on, Jeremy?
Yep.
Good, excellent.
Good. This is great. And the problem, by the way, for the BMW at Road America, it ran out of fuel towards the end of the race. They thought they had enough fuel in that car. It turns out that there was kind of a glitch in the fueling system, and it kind of, there's always a bit of blowback there. They thought they had the amount of fuel in that they needed. Turns out they didn't. So that's why they ran out. And why not bring him in to the pits? Why not? And the reason for that is they knew towards the end they were struggling, but at that point, if they ran out of fuel, they were going to finish 7th. If they came in and made a pit stop, they were going to finish 7th. So they thought they might as well stay out there, hope for some sort of miracle or a full course caution perhaps, and that didn't happen. So that was a problem with the BMW. It was a kind of a glitch in the refueling process, and just all kind of one of those things that happens. But there is Catherine, some grass in the front of that Acura. Maybe
well, maybe that's the answer to the question of why she had that longer lap. Brian Sellers still in a monumental battle as Catherine goes grass tracking again on the exit of Oak Tree. Can't afford to be doing that, Cat. Through goes the Ford. That's not a battle for position. That's the 4th place, number 66 Ford GT of Dirk Muller that goes past on the back straight. Catherine, with 18 minutes to go, needs these second place points to close in that 18-point gap. What a season it's been in GT Daytona already. And still, with Laguna Seca and Petit Le Mans to come, we are going to be looking at a championship decider at Petit Le Mans in the both of the GT classes. I have no doubt of that. Jeremy will be doing calculations on the fly. I've already decided I'm bringing the abacus to Motul Petit Le Mans. Yes, because frankly, shoes and socks off, just really, it's undignified in the comms box. In fact, Prototype as well is shaping up to be a pretty tight championship, so we could yet be waiting for all of our champions to be crowned in the Night of Champions, which, of course,
Pat Long has got past Lawson Aschenbach for 3rd place.
That's significant, because I've got a feeling Pat's got a pretty good Porsche underneath him at the moment. He's got past Lawson and cleared off, allows the 912 of Larry, Lawrence Van Tour, to go through. Alexander Sims controlling things at the front of the field. just under 9 seconds. It was just over 9 seconds when he came out the pits, but there's only 16 3/4 minutes to go. Pat Long on the move then for Wright Motorsports. Teammate Christina Nielsen did a brilliant middle stint, kept the car right in amongst the fight. Catherine Legg going down the back straight is the next target for Pat Long. And Catherine just going a little bit wide, a couple of laps or 3 ago, and putting the Continental tyres onto the dirt. It's dried up out there now, but it's still a wild ride, Jeremy. What you've got to worry about is when you come back on there, if there's a little ledge to get back onto the hard standing, that can do damage to the inside wall of the Continental tyre.
That's very true, and I think she's had a couple of minor offs. I don't really call that a major off, I call that a minor off over the last couple of laps.
I would be slightly worried about the grass in the intakes though. Car's mid-engined, but there'll be coolers at the front end of the car, whether it's an oil cooler, brake cooling ducts or whatever. Dominic Baumann, 5.5 seconds ahead, leads GT Daytona with 15.5 minutes to go in our Michelin Countdown to Green. I did mention that Lexus had won and had a great day in a mixed season for them at Mid-Ohio. We were pointing out the similarities, Jeremy, between Mid-Ohio and here at VIR.
That's right, that was a good clean lap there for Catherine Legg last time around, by the way. As we see Dominic Bauman's lead is 5.5 seconds now. Nice clean lap for Catherine. It was only 4/10 slower than that car's best lap last time around.
Which was put in by Catherine.
Which was put in by Catherine. And she was 3/4 of a second quicker than the car we're watching on screen here, the Lexus of Dominic Baumann. We know the Lexus is hard on their tyres.
That's a fair point.
We're getting towards the end of this race now. Their tyres should be about equal. They've been on their cars for about a similar amount of time, but how well has Dominic Baumann looked after them? That is going to be the key now in the final 14 minutes.
Jeremy, Shay's just told me of something that I wasn't expecting, and I'll let her give this Continental Tire pit lane update. And I'm just going to throw this out here about what happened a couple of weeks ago in terms of fuel consumption. Shay Adam.
You already know where I'm on my way to now, John. That would be the GTD leader, because the 96 Turner Motorsports BMW, we were not expecting to see down the pit lane again. They just came in for a splash of fuel.
You were rubbing your chin even as you said that.
They shouldn't need it.
No, thank you, Shay.
They'd already fallen to the back of the pack, unfortunately. Robbie Foley was running as high as 5th, but he's back to 10th even before making this pit stop.
Well, was that precautionary? It was only a splash of fuel, and off has gone the... Oh, no, that's the 15. It's Jack Hawksworth, having just come out of the first corner, and he's put the car on the grass.
He's been off a couple of times.
Yes, he has. It's uncharacteristic for him.
Again, you know, the end of the race, the back end of the car using up its tyres, and once again on that last 2 laps, Catherine Legg has pulled in the better part of 3/4 of a second over the leading Lexus of Dominic Baumann.
Dominic Baumann may just be soft pedalling that throttle to try and stop the rear tyres spinning up on that Lexus. Once tyres start to go, you'll feel it straight away. Temperature's been warm right the way through the race, and none of the rain that the pessimists were suggesting, even as late as this morning, with 12 minutes to go. And side-by-side contact at the top of the hill at the roller coaster between the number 93 of Lawson Aschenbach and Gunnar Jeanette. And Jerome Blakemolen down in 6th position. Has he got past Brian Sellers? Yes, he has.
He has, and he's, yes.
So that's bad news.
That's bad news. The number 63 car, Gunnar Jeanette, has also got past Lawson Aschenbach on the last lap as well.
Correct.
So all sorts of shuffling going on. And now
that was at the top of the hill.
The gap from first to second in GTD is now only 3.8 seconds.
Shay Adam has been to speak to 3GT, and John Gentilozzi, the man at the top, says what about the leading car in GT Daytona?
He says they are comfortable with their fuel.
Okay.
Yeah, they're comfortable with the fuel. It's the tyres they need to be worried about, or are worried about, I should say.
93 dropping pace for Lawson Aschenbach. So whatever that was ailing that car earlier on. Brian Sellers has got back past Jerome Blakemole that last lap. So now he's up into 5th. Well, that's good news for the championship leader. At the front of the field, the gap is just gently coming down. Was 9.2, dropped to the mid-8s, now 8 flat last time around. As Alexander Sims comes through, 43.6 last time around against 43.2 for Jan Magnussen. Ooh, 44.1 for Sims this time around. Now, what does Jan Magnussen have to do? Here he comes. Magnussen is under pressure from Jesse Krohn. So that's why Magnussen's picking up his pace, Jeremy. 44.6 from Magnussen. Jesse Krohn, the fastest of the top 3 cars, at a 43.3.
Yeah, and all of a sudden that gap has come down. It was around about 2.5 seconds for several laps, and just over the last couple of laps, it's come down to just a few car lengths between 2nd and 3rd. Magnussen all of a sudden lost a bit of his lap time on the last lap was a 44.6.
Correct.
He'd been actually closing in a little bit on the race leader, but that all went away on that last lap.
And it's gone back out to 8.5 seconds, as Jeremy mentioned, but it's only half a second between Krohn and Magnussen.
Who has left, and Krohn, by the way, has left Dirk Müller.
Left him in the dust. So the hopes of Ford coming in here with a stunning pole position at a racetrack they've not stood on the top step of the podium have turned to dust here in Virginia. And it looks at this stage as though the 2 strongest cars on the track are those of Rahal, Letterman and Lanigan. Bobby Rahal not here this weekend.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be the first time that a team didn't have the boss there and got the job done. That happens, Bobby will be banned from the rest of the races. Racing teams are very superstitious. Shout out for Pat Long as well, Jeremy. He's only a further 4 seconds back.
I was just going to say that.
Flying.
He's flying, yeah. He was by far the quickest car in GT Daytona on that last lap.
Pat Long only 4 seconds behind Catherine Legg, took 1.2 seconds out of her. Bauman steadying the ship a little bit, 4 seconds between himself, so 8 seconds between the top 3. Gunnar Jeanette is dropping away a little bit. Brian Sellers still has not been able to get back past, and in fact has dropped away from Gunnar Jeanette, and he's got Jerome Blakemole breathing down his neck again.
That was a much better lap there from Jan Magnussen. He must have made a mistake on the previous lap, I think, but right down now into the low 43s, 43.3 for Magnussen, the 43.2 for Jesse Krohn.
Well, it's the battle of the Scandinavians, isn't it, at the moment, with just under 9 minutes to go. Here's our Cadillac in-race update. Dominic Bauman leads GTD for the number 18, the blue Lexus, by just 2.5 seconds from second in the championship, second in this race, the 86 Acura, that's the grey Acura of Catherine Legg. And in 3rd position, it's Pat Long. Oh, now, was there a bump and run there? That was Andy Lally again, who was on the scene. No, that was just a complete outbraking manoeuvre by Jack Hawksmith. Andy Lally actually just driving out the way and saying, there you go, Jack, if you think you can make that, on you go at turn 1 a few laps ago.
He wasn't even close to going into the corner. Not quite sure how he managed to do that, but look, here's...
Lally going past Aschenbach between turns 3 and 4.
Yep. And
I think Aschenbach's struggling with tyres, I do.
Legg is now just 2.5 seconds behind Bauman.
So, let's get this Cadillac update done. 14 Lexus by 2.5 seconds from Catherine Legg in the 86. Then the red and white Porsche is 4 seconds further back. Gunnar Jeanette 11 seconds back in the WeatherTech Ferrari. At the front of the field, Sims by now only 7 seconds.
Yeah, I think they're
Magnussen.
managing it.
I agree. 25 from 5. White BMW from yellow Corvette number 3, from black Corvette, black BMW number 24. 3/4 of a second, and then the long gap back to the Ford. That's the battle. 1st, 2nd and 3rd still within 8 seconds in GT Le Mans. 1st, 2nd and 3rd in GT Daytona within 4 seconds now. Check, that's 5 seconds as Pat Long is closing in on Catherine Legg, who's closing in on Dominic Bauman. A grandstand finish in the IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship. Not a shock, really. That's your Cadillac in-race update with 7 minutes to go. Time to shuffle forward on your seat or stand up and start getting ready for the drama to explode again.
And clearly it's very difficult to be consistent in these GT Daytona cars in the closing stages of this race, because no one is lapping with any great consistency. They're all up and down. Last lap around for Catherine Legg was a 47. She'd been doing 46s or 45s. Patrick Long last time around was a 45.7. So he's all of a sudden closed in again. It's all over the place, but fascinating to watch. And I think you mentioned it, didn't you, that the Jerome Blakemore has got back ahead of Brian Sellers again. That battle continuing. In fact, he's actually edged away a little bit now. The good news for Sellers is he's quite a long way ahead of Andy Lally, who, as we saw, did get past Lawson Aschenbach.
Well, Jeremy, it's happening again. The Michelin GT Challenge here at VIR. Just over 5 minutes to go. Call it 6. Depends when the leader goes across the line. And everybody at Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan will have their fingers crossed. Robbed of a victory by, what, a couple of laps at Road America.
I didn't see at what time he crossed the line, whether it's going to be, it won't be white flag next time, whether it'll be the white flag the lap after, I'm not quite sure.
5:23 to go.
It'll be at least 3 more laps.
He crossed the time just under 2 hours 34 minutes completed in the race, if that helps for you. 2 hours 33 and 53.
All of a sudden, Tommy Milner is catching Lawrence Van Tour, isn't he?
Shea Adam likes progression. She likes order. And she likes things that repeat. And earlier on today, it was bad news. Nothing good happening to the leading car in warm-up. And what did you say, Shea?
I said that traditionally in the IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship, yes, I like patterns. When a car catches fire, either in warm-up or in testing before the race, it tends to go on and win. You want to see our last example was the 48 Paul Miller Racing Lamborghini, which had a little bit of fire coming from it in practice 1. It went on to win the GTD class at Lime Rock. We've had 2 Corvettes go up in flames at Daytona International Speedway and then go on to win the 24 Hours of Daytona. And that BMW that's leading right now, there were spits of flame coming from it this morning.
Yeah, black smoke, definitely. Looked like somebody had put the lid down on lifted the lid on a barbecue at one stage and left the sausages in a bit too long. Guys working really hard to turn that car around in not a huge amount of time before the green flag.
The gap's now down to 4.2 seconds, or 5.2 seconds, excuse me. So it came down.
Jesse Kron's right with Magnussen again.
Yeah, I mean, those two are absolutely flying. And I think Alexander Sims has been super consistent, 44. Very, very low 44s the last half dozen laps.
Can I just mention GT Daytona and the top 3 being within 3 seconds?
Yeah.
Make that 1.3 seconds now. They were all together as they crossed the line. Baumann, Legg and Long, Lexus, Acura, Porsche and Ferrari and Mercedes and Lamborghini and Audi. The top 7 cars in GT Daytona from different manufacturers through turn 2 into turn 3, and Baumann has been caught, and the back end of that blue number 14 3GT Lexus is sliding all over the place, and Catherine Legg sniffs the top step of the podium here, but the problem is so does Pat Long, and he feels like he's been robbed of a victory this season. It was Lime Rock Park when the car went away late on, couldn't keep the tyres underneath it. And this is getting very, very interesting indeed for the GT Daytona battle. 2.5 minutes to go. And once again, the numbers don't lie. GT3 looking spectacular here. GT Le Mans looking the same. GT Daytona, the IMSA technical crew, they deserve a round of drinks from every single spectator here. That would make them quite drunk, in fairness, but you know what I mean. They've done a cracking job here. This is a championship that allows racers to race. It rewards consistency. It rewards good decision-making. It rewards clean, decisive, quick drivers. And it attracts the biggest names, whether it's manufacturers or drivers, in the GT world. IMSA on top of its game, on top of the GT world here at VIR.
And it'll be white flag next time around.
For the leader, for
the
Sims.
race leader, yes, and now for everybody with the GTD cars just going across start-finish line.
Honestly, there's any amount of things that could happen yet. Dirk Muller could be on the podium yet, even though he's 23 seconds back, because all kinds of things could happen. And Gunnar Jeanette could win GTD.
No question.
With these three battling, here comes Pat Long down the inside of turn 3, gets the nose to the left rear corner of Catherine Legg's Acura, but can't get through.
No.
And that's given Dominic Baumann a big breathing space. And Catherine, that might be enough.
That might be enough for Dominic Baumann, because Catherine is going to be wanting not to give up a place to Patrick Long, that's for sure.
I think Pat Long is in the car that's best at the end. Catherine's got some issues of grip, but not as much as the leader. Through comes the 25. Catherine will be thinking championship at this point. White flag for Alexander Sims, and 3.1 seconds behind is Jan Magnussen. He can't slow down. He's got Jesse Krohn in the shadow of the rear wing of that Corvette C7R. Baumann, a lap and a half to go. Call it a lap and a third as they're going down the back straight. Equally spaced at the moment. Now is Pat Long going to try and make a long dash down through the final set of corners? The roller coaster and Hogpen and onto the straight. That Porsche is very good in a straight line, and we know the two cars ahead are struggling for a little bit of grip. Catherine Legg gets a good run out the final corner. Baumann just sliding around a bit, and Catherine Legg is dragging up towards the back of the leader. Not going to be close enough at turn 1, I don't think. Maybe Patrick Long is getting a drag as well. No, he's too far back. Oh, this is magnificent stuff. Absolutely magnificent. Catherine Long gains within just a car's length, and Baumann can barely get the power down going out to turn 1. And here comes Pat Long. The two cars ahead clearly struggling through the slower bits, and Long's right there again. They're back together, and again Long goes to the left-hand side. Again, Catherine blocks to the inside. That's all right. Little love tap from Patrick on the back of the Acura, same place as last time around. This is not over, Jeremy. This is not over, and Gunnar Jeanette might yet win this. This could end up in a pile of carbon fibre.
Well, actually, Jerome Blekemolen could lead it, could win it too, because he's right behind the WeatherTech Ferrari.
Three cars absolutely line astern. Meantime, at the checkered flag, Alexander Sims has won the GT LM class. The Michelin GT Challenge here at VIR. The 25 BMW takes its first IMSA WeatherTech win from Jan Magnussen, a second further back. But the battle between the GTDs is still on. Catherine Legg down the inside. Catherine side by side with the Lexus. Nose to head before the braking area. Patrick Long sitting watching this. He's got the grandstand view. Baumann's not going to give this up. He stays to the inside and somehow super late for somebody with no grip on the rear end. Got plenty of grip on the front. Here comes Pat Long down the inside. That's an outstanding manoeuvre by Plongy, and he goes up into second place. Can he hold on to it? He can. And Catherine Legg is eased out of second position at the line, and it's one lap too early for the checkered flag for Plongy, but right on time for Dominic Baumann, who takes Lexus' second win in the championship after their breakout victory at Mid-Ohio earlier on this year. We'll give you the full results in a moment. I'm going for a cold shower and a rub down with frozen halibut oil. Meantime, Shea Adam is down in the pit lane.
Connor DeFilippi, it took you a little while, but you got your first win wearing the BMW colors. How does it feel to get it done at VIR?
Oh man, this one's special, especially after the way the first beginning of the race went. I mean, it's basically my home race as well. I moved out to Charlotte from California, and this is the closest track to us. So I got a win this year in the M6 over at the Nürburgring, and now to get the first win in the M8 program is really special, and it's just been a big honor to be part of this entire group.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Shea, can you just make that interview go on for another half an hour while Jeremy and I gather our thoughts, please?
No, because I don't have enough brain power for that.
Oh
that
my
was
goodness me.
That was fantastic.
18 cars, 2 cars out relatively early on, half the race ago for Briscoe and Tandy in their Ford and the 911. but enough action and drama right to the very last in both of the classes that most series would kill for across a whole season. Extraordinary stuff, absolutely extraordinary, and a well-deserved win for RLL, who have been developing this car throughout this season. It's taken them, what, half the year in terms of the rounds of the championship, a little over that. Let's go back to Shea Adam for some more reaction from the winning teams, and this from the GTD winners, Kyle Marcelli from Lexus.
Well, Kyle, you're not going to share with your teammates. You guys got the first win for the Lexus at Mid-Ohio. Now you get win number 2 here at VIRginia International Raceway. That 14 Lexus looked hooked up today.
Yeah, you know what? It was not an easy race. The temperatures made it very difficult inside the cockpit of the car. Dominic did a heck of a job to do the double stint at the end. I didn't think it was possible. I was ready to get back in the car, so huge effort by him. The whole team. This is it's the first win is always the most difficult to get, and it's great to back it up. So huge thanks to 3GT Racing, Lexus Racing USA. It's been a great day. I can't say anything more about the day.
Well, now you're going to get to sweat a little bit more. You got to run all the way down for the podium, but congrats.
Thanks, Shane.
If you have any questions, points arising, observations, start tweeting them now, please, at IMSA Radio, hashtag Michelin PRT. The checkered flag has ended the race, and what a race it was. But now the conversation can begin. Jeremy Shea and I will be answering your questions and trying to make some sense of what we've seen, not just today, but throughout the weekend. Alexander Sims is not giving the checkered flag up anytime soon. He makes sure it's tucked away inside the car. Jeremy Shaw, before we bid farewell to our IMSA TV viewers, let's have a quick update on the championships. Coming in here in GT Le Mans, Westy and Briscoe led the championship by 4 ahead of Garcia and Magnussen, with 5 points further back Joey Hand and Muller. So it was Ford, Corvette, Ford in the GTLM Drivers' Championship.
That's exactly right, and the margin remains at 4 points. However, it's now Jan Magnussen and Antonio Garcia who will lead by 4 points over Westbrook and Briscoe. 5 points behind them will be Dirk Mueller and Joey Hand in 3rd position.
As far as the manufacturer's concerned, Ford had a handy lead, some 14 points over a Chevrolet.
It's been trimmed by a couple.
Right, just a couple. GTD, Sellers and Snow, Brian and Madison, 250 points, had an 18-point lead on Catherine Legg. That's come down.
It has, now down to 13. But what a difference. If Catherine had been able to make that pass on that final lap, that would have been absolutely huge for her. Been another 5 points in her favour. Instead, she actually lost a couple, and she lost a position on that final lap, fell down to 3rd place. But just 13 points between Sellers and Snow and Catherine Legg.
In the manufacturers, Lamborghini had 257 to Acura's 233. Well, that's going to come down a bit as well.
That's going to come down a bit as well, but not by that amount. It's still going to be 20 points or thereabouts.
Well, the only genuine rookie driver who hadn't been here in any series, Dominic Baumann, and he managed to hold on at the end of the race. Shea Adam, that was an outstanding run. He had virtually no grip left at the end and somehow defended. In some ways, Pat Long being there and challenging Catherine Legg actually helped him out.
I think that's what the difference was, and I can't wait to talk to Patrick Long and Catherine Legg in our post-race tech once they've gotten their helmets off and they're back with bottles of water, because I bet their conversation is going to be pretty interesting too.
Yeah, post-race tech coming up, hashtag Michelin PRT. For your points arising, questions, observations, whether you're here at the track or further afield. And I'd just say a very quick thank you to Dave Miller and everyone here at VIR for getting us on the PA and 89.9 FM. Once again, Connie Nyme, Home, Kerrigan and all the rest of the team here have put on an outstanding event. Our IMSA crew on site that hook up the IMSA radio gear every week. Tyler, Brian and Ron, brilliant work. And also to our technical crew back in the UK at Mission Control, our main control room under Tim Gray, and up in Charlotte under Keith D'Alessandro for IMSA TV. They have worked exceptionally hard on a very busy weekend. Jeremy, sum that up in a sentence, eh? Imagine if you had to write this one up in 800 words for a...
I've got to do it in about 500, I think. That's going to be difficult because it was a tremendous motor race. I mean, just flat out race from start to finish. Brilliant work by Alexander Sims there and Colin De Filippi.
All green.
Well, not quite. No, there was
no, we had one. Yeah, sorry, yeah.
But it was a great race, and goodness gracious, I mean, fortunes changed in both categories all the way through that race on a fairly regular basis. Brilliant win for Dominic Baumann there and Kyle Marcelli in GT Daytona as well. They did a super job to hold off Patrick Long and Catherine Legg. What a battle that was over the last few laps. Catherine will be kind of kicking herself there. She had the inside line, she had the preferred line into the roller coaster, but Dominic Baumann just stuffed it in as late as he possibly could and held on. It was a brilliant victory by Baumann there.
And Shea, Adam, you saw the emotion down there in the pit lane. That means an awful lot to BMW RLL, the team there.
It's not only a win in their first year with a brand new car, it's a double podium, and especially for the 24 crew, it's their first podium of the year, their second top 5 finish. A lot of happy faces for BMW tonight, and in quite an unexpected win. They weren't expecting to win when they came here this weekend. Now they leave with 2 cars in the top 3.
Fastest lap and 2 fastest sectors for Porsche. Once again, come home empty-handed.
Yeah, that's right. And who was on the pole this one? I can't remember now. Who was on pole?
Who was on pole?
Richard Westbrook.
That was Richard Westbrook.
Yeah, right. That was my point.
Yeah.
Ford was on pole. Porsche got fastest race lap. BMW won the race.
And Corvette are on the podium.
Absolutely brilliant. I mean, just fantastic motor race. And you know, hats off to everybody involved here. It was BMW. They were pretty confident this morning. I saw Steve Dixon, who's the team manager there at BMW TRLL, and he was pretty confident, even though they had that drama this morning. They had a good car at Road America. They've had good cars on several occasions. They finally put it all together here, and it was a great performance. And of course, now all of the manufacturers have won in GTLM this season, all 4.
Shea Adam was our Continental Tire pit lane reporter. Jeremy Shaw joined me in the broadcast bus. Coming up, it's Michelin post-race tech, hashtag Michelin PRT at IMSA Radio. Couple of 3 weeks' time, we'll be at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca, live in sound and vision again. Honestly, I'm going to have to go and see a cardiac specialist if they all end up like this year. It's taking years off my life, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Post-race techs next. Stay tuned to 89.9 for the formalities and to RS2 IMSA Radio for the rest of our programming. There are not words to adequately describe the tension and excitement in the booth and down the pit lane at the end of the Michelin GT Challenge, indeed all the way through the Michelin GT Challenge here at VIR. Jeremy Shaw, John Hindhaugh and Shea Adam for Michelin post-race tech in a race that's been an extraordinary demonstration of GT excellence. So many tweets coming in at IMSA Radio, hashtag PRT. Just brilliant stuff. And Jeremy, we've got to say again, I know we've mentioned this before, but a lot of people saying, hang on, BOP, balance of performance that actually balances the performance. It's working. In this series, it's working because they do it on a data-driven system.
Yeah, I've always loved the concept. I know a lot of people don't, but I always have done. And I think it's great. It works perfectly. And this is, as you say, this is a perfect example of why the IMSA technical team works so hard, and this is the fruit of their labour. It's a tremendous medal race.
Take a bow, gentlemen. Take a bow, gentlemen and ladies. Catherine Legg closes the gap between herself in second and Madison Snow and Brian Sellers, leading GTD Drivers' Championship to 13 points from the 18 it was. She's with Shea Adam in Michelin Post-Race Tech.
Well, Catherine, it's down to 14 points now between you and the two boys leading the championship. You drove a killer double stint at the end of that race. You had to go for it.
Oh man, I had to go for it, right? You know, if it wasn't for my mistake earlier, I really think I could have given the team that win. And honestly, they deserved it because the car was awesome. Team did a faultless job, and yeah, I missed a gear and Pat got past me as I was fighting Bauman there, and I was just kicking myself then to the finish. But it was that was fun, you know, really, really good fun, and it was fun to have a car that I could somewhat fight with, although we were still struggling a little bit in a straight line. The guys did a really good job to give me a good race car with very little degradation, which is what we were after. So Mario did an awesome job, and I'm happy we're back in it.
So you had good grip at the end of that race then?
I mean, describe like good grip is maybe an overstatement, but for sure we had better than some others and not as good as some others. So, you know, I tried to look up my tires, but at the end Pat was coming, so he did a monster job.
Would you have gotten by Dominic, do you think, if Pat hadn't been behind you?